Chapter 1693. On the surface, Zhang Tianyi had accepted the mission of sealing the Killing Stone. So, Zhang Tianyi had to go to Japan first. Chen Zhao was waiting for Zhang Tianyi's message. In the past few days, Chen Zhao had been preparing. During cultivation, Chen Zhao had obtained the complete Divine Strike technique from Zhang Tianyi. Divine Strike was a top-notch spell in the Celestial Masters sect, but it wasn't a secret. There were more than 10 people in Mount Longhu's Celestial Master sect who knew this technique. Outside of Mount Longhu's Celestial Master sect, there were also a few people who knew this technique. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, exchanged the spell of his avatar. Of course, in terms of value, the clone was definitely more valuable. However, when it came to things like value, different people would have different opinions. Of course, the cultivation requirements for the clone were also higher. This wasn't something that just anyone could train to do. In the few days in Los Angeles, Zhang Tianyi went to Minghua Villa every day to talk to Chen Zhao. If not for the Japanese government urging Zhang Tianyi probably wouldn't want to leave. To be honest, Zhang Tianyi was also a huge help to Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi was a professional. He had the most orthodox inheritance. Chen Zhao was a true unorthodox person. He knew a little of everything and he had to figure it out himself. Zhang Tianyi's guidance made up for many of Chen Zhao's shortcomings. After receiving Zhang Tianyi's guidance, Chen Zhao felt that he really had to go to the Celestial Masters sect. Chen Zhao was indeed very powerful now. Zhang Tianyi had even been telling him that he was the #1 person in the world. But Chen Zhao didn't even know some basic Taoist things. At night, Chen Zhao rose to an altitude of 30,000 meters. The air here was less than 1/30th of the air on the ground. The cosmic radiation here was 100 times stronger than on the ground. If he went higher, the air would be thinner, and the cosmic radiation stronger. But if he went higher, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to handle it. Chen Zhao could breathe in the water because he had evolved the ability to absorb the oxygen in the water. But he hadn't evolved to the point where he could completely break free from oxygen. Plus, he wasn't sure if he could fight against a vacuum environment. Chen Zhao could fly now, but he hadn't truly reached the stage where he could fly. Of course, if it was just holding his breath, he could do it for 2 hours. But he planned to go higher slowly. The first thing to do was to adapt to the altitude of 30,000 meters. Chen Zhao felt that the creator of God's strike had to be a really awesome person. At the very least, he was at the level of a deity. Of course, it wasn't someone as ignorant as Chen Zhao. This also showed the foundation of the Celestial Master sect of Longhu Mountain. Sometimes, he even thought that he was the first person in history. But reality proved that if Chen Zhao was compared to the ancients, he probably wouldn't even be ranked. Not to mention the ancient times that created legends, even in the past dynasties, there were probably many great magical powers that could move mountains and fill seas. Who could guarantee that it wouldn't happen in modern society? Humans didn't, but what about other races? For example, what about the giant dragon clan that hibernated in the human world? Absorbing cosmic rays was a very dangerous move for ordinary people. Being exposed to a large amount of radiation was like throwing a person into a microwave oven. However, for those in the Shangqing realm, their bodily functions were already far superior to those of ordinary people, and their resistance was 100 times greater than that of ordinary people. 23rd Blood Mary and Zhang Tianyi could also fly, but their bodies were weaker than Chen Zhao's, so they couldn't be exposed to low pressure and lack of oxygen like Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't have this problem. When cosmic rays weren't a fatal threat anymore, they became the source of energy for the body. Chen Zhao thought about it as he cultivated. If one day he was strong enough, would he be able to travel through the universe? Absorbing cosmic rays and absorbing spiritual qi were actually the same concept. They both had to be converted into his own energy. But different from spiritual qi would eventually be converted into immortal power or magic power. When cosmic rays were absorbed into the body, they were completely absorbed by the cells. They were stored in the cells and then strengthened. But Chen Zhao's cells were filled with immortal power. The two types of pure energy didn't repel each other. Instead, they attracted each other, but they didn't mix. After each cell absorbed the energy converted from cosmic rays, it repelled and attracted the immortal power, forming something like a yin and yang fish. Qin Zhao felt his body strengthen several times. But there was a limit, which depended on Qin Zhao's immortal power. The maximum amount of cosmic rays absorbed couldn't exceed immortal power. After the immortal power and cosmic energy reached a perfect balance, the cells also stabilized. Qin Zhao felt it. His body had strengthened by around 3 times. Moreover, it was cultivated to the extreme in one go. It was hard to improve further. Unless Qin Zhao's immortal power could improve further. But according to Zhang Tianyi, he'd spent more than 10 days cultivating in outer space and his body had strengthened 10 times. There was no reason for him to be weaker than him, right? Was it because the limit of his body was too high? Qin Zhao suddenly thought of Magatama. Magatama was in the shape of a yin and yang fish. And he sensed that Magatama was a god's internal alchemy. But why was it in the shape of a yin and yang fish? And there was only half of it. Where did the other half go? Normally, if an internal alchemy was destroyed, it would be the entire thing, not half. Was there another possibility that this god's internal alchemy was half immortal power and half cosmic energy? And after the god died, only half of the immortal power was left, while the cosmic energy dissipated. This was an idea. He could try. Qin Zhao started to compress the cosmic energy. More and more cosmic energy was compressed into the internal alchemy. As expected, the internal alchemy started to change. As more and more cosmic energy was compressed, the internal alchemy started to change. The shape of the internal alchemy started to change into the shape of a yin and yang fish. Qin Zhao felt the surging feeling brought by this change. There was also the information in the cosmic energy. Violent, restless, chaotic. This was an extremely unstable energy, but the other half of the yin and yang fish formed by the immortal power was very calm. As the yin and yang fish rotated, the other half of the yin and yang fish formed by the cosmic energy also formed a magical stable structure. Qin Zhao suddenly understood the yin and yang that Taoists talked about. Yin represented chaos, while yang represented extreme stillness. When the two merged together, they were clearly separated. But they formed a stable and permanent state. Moreover, the rotation of the yin and yang fish made Qin Zhao feel endless. Qin Zhao moved and landed back on the ground. Fast, too fast. Qin Zhao felt that his speed had increased by at least 10 times. Of course, Qin Zhao felt that he had to solve another important problem. How could he ensure that he wouldn't run naked in the high-speed air friction? Chapter 1694. Currently, there were only materials that could resist such high-speed friction. Apart from metal, there seemed to be only dragon scales. But dragon scales weren't suitable for modern textile technology. Qin Zhao thought for a moment. He'd get Ron Faxi to make a pair of dragon scale boxers later. Then he'd add a spell that could expand and shrink it. That way, when Qin Zhao used the Titan, his pants wouldn't burst. He had to at least get the finished product before he went to Japan. It was past 4 in the morning. Qin Zhao sat on the dragon's head and took out Satan's blood. The handsome guy had taught Qin Zhao how to absorb Satan's blood. It wasn't easy. Qin Zhao had tried before. It was very inefficient. But he had no choice. If he absorbed Satan's blood through the container, he could only absorb the power released by the blood. It was easy to increase efficiency. Open the container. The blood of Satan was directly released. But that would be like detonating a nuclear bomb. There was another way. He could use his hand to block the container. Through direct contact, he could absorb Satan's blood. But Satan's blood would definitely kill Qin Zhao in an instant. Unless he had the power of a Demon King. Anyone below Demon King level couldn't resist Satan's blood. Each drop of Satan's blood could create a secondary Demon King. But the secondary Demon Kings didn't choose to absorb Satan's blood. They used it. There was a direct difference between the two. For example, Beelzebub Sophie was challenging a secondary demon king. What was it for? It was to take Satan's blood from the secondary demon king. In other words, Satan's blood could be used infinitely. But the way the handsome guy taught Qin Zhao was different. It was to let Satan's blood flow in Qin Zhao's body. But the cycle was very long. It might take hundreds or even thousands of years to completely absorb this drop of Satan's blood. But Qin Zhao definitely didn't have that long. Perhaps his identity as a god could greatly increase his lifespan. But Qin Zhao could clearly feel that he wasn't like the legendary immortals who lived as long as the sky and the earth, shining with the sun and moon. He probably wouldn't even be 300 years old. 300 years was a long time for normal people. But for a god, it wasn't a long time. Never mind, I'll put it away first. Qin Zhao believed that absorbing Satan's blood would be very beneficial to him. However, he really couldn't be bothered with the long cycle. It was like someone saying that eating health supplements every day was good for the body. Perhaps health supplements were indeed good for the body. But this change was not obvious. The sun rose and Qin Zhao bathed in the sunlight. He could also absorb sunlight now. Sunlight is also a kind of cosmic ray. However, it was blocked by the atmosphere. Therefore, the sunlight was more like an appetizer or a dessert after a meal to Qin Zhao. After breakfast, Qin Zhao drove to the headquarters. Many people in the association had the habit of waking up early. However, Qin Zhao was definitely not one of them. Everyone was surprised that Qin Zhao came to the headquarters so early in the morning. Qin Zhao didn't greet anyone. He directly entered the training tower. Moreover, Qin Zhao reset his progress from the first level. The association members all thought that Qin Zhao was too bored. The first floor? Most official members were able to clear the dungeon by themselves. Was this necessary? Avatar, 10,000 techniques returned to 1, dark assimilation, mighty miracle god. Qin Zhao's skin turned metallic. The monsters on the first floor had already surrounded him. Qin Zhao punched the ground with all his strength. Millions of tons of power poured into the ground. In an instant, the Earth's tectonic plates shattered. The shockwave covered a radius of 1,000 meters. The surrounding monsters bled instantly. The bodies of the monsters exploded one by one. More than 1,000 monsters were killed in an instant. He cleared the first floor. SSS. Qin Zhao entered the second floor. The twisted monsters on the second floor surrounded him again. This time, Qin Zhao didn't use the same method as before. Instead, he used punches. Qin Zhao punched with all his strength. The punches were many times more powerful than before. With a faster speed and greater power, the fist shadows became more terrifying. The twisted monsters touched the punches. They weren't smashed into pieces. They evaporated. Qin Zhao released thousands of punches in an instant. He immediately met the requirements to clear the level. Still SSS. Entering the third floor, Qin Zhao took out the black trident. The moment the winged demon appeared, Qin Zhao moved. Instantly, a black shadow flashed across the sky. Severed limbs rained down from the sky. He cleared the level again. Still SSS. Just like before, once Qin Zhao used his full strength, there would be nothing left of him. Qin Zhao didn't continue. Instead, he left the Tower of Trials. President, how come you're out so soon? Klaus asked. Klaus, what do the military use to test the speed of cannonballs? Qin Zhao asked. Most use optical capture, Klaus said. Is this equipment expensive? Klaus nodded. Very. Do you have a way? President, do you want it? Yes, I need it personally, Qin Zhao said. We can also give it to our own people. Qin Zhao planned to buy a set of equipment. How much exactly? About $30 million if we go through the proper channels, Klaus said. Qin Zhao thought about it. Then help me get one through the proper channels. How big is the equipment? Very big, at least as big as our warehouse. Okay, give me your account number. You'll be in charge of buying the equipment. President, do we need this equipment? Klaus didn't understand. After all, they weren't testing weapons. I need it personally. Qin Zhao wanted to know how fast he was now. Because once he sped up, everything would seem to be moving in slow motion. Okay, I understand. Qin Zhao felt that he'd improved a bit too quickly recently. However, it was only in terms of strength. He hadn't broken through in terms of cultivation. This meant that Qin Zhao still had a lot of room for growth. He didn't run into any bottlenecks in the short term. Oh, is Fazabin awake? He didn't sleep. He's in the lab the whole night. I'll go find him. Qin Zhao disappeared from Klaus' sight. Klaus was stunned. Before, he could barely catch Qin Yao's shadow. But now, he couldn't even catch a trace of Qin Zhao. With someone like this leading the way, everyone hoped that they could speed up and keep up with Qin Zhao. They would always think of all sorts of ways to become stronger. For example, Klaus would ask an elite to fight him. After going against Angelite's super speed, Klaus' reaction speed had reached an inhuman level. Chapter 1695. Fazabin, help me make something. President, what do you want? Boxers, Qin Zhao said as calmly as he could. Ha! President, this joke isn't funny at all. Ruan Fazabin waved his hand. He just looked at Qin Zhao's serious eyes. He suddenly realized that Qin Zhao wasn't joking. President, I'm an alchemist. I'm a famous alchemist. I'm going to become a famous alchemist in the future. I need 10 pairs to change. Use dragon scales. A few minutes later, Qin Zhao stated his request and walked out of Ruan Fazabin's lab. Ruan Fazabin was in despair. He thought of his future. If he could really become a famous alchemist in the future, this would definitely be a stain that he could never erase. However, under Qin Zhao's power, he had no right to refuse. Qin Zhao returned home. Something was wrong. There was a strange aura in the air. Celestial power. Where did it come from? Qin Zhao expanded the small world to the max. There was nothing suspicious. The celestial power kept spreading wildly. Too powerful, too surging, it far surpassed Qin Zhao's own celestial power. Qin Zhao's heart jumped. He immediately appeared in the basement. It was Old Turtle's internal alchemy. It was the celestial power released by Old Turtle's internal alchemy. How could this be? How could Old Turtle's internal alchemy be filled with such powerful celestial power? Had Old Turtle finished? Qin Zhao entered the river map. Smiling, Old Turtle waited for Qin Zhao. He seemed to have expected Qin Zhao to come in now. You're here. You seem to have improved well. Old Turtle looked at Qin Zhao in admiration. Old Turtle, you woke me up, Old Turtle said. I'm an immortal now. Immortal? Qin Zhao looked at Old Turtle. There was a very special aura around Old Turtle. But Qin Zhao couldn't tell what was special. Old Turtle, is there a difference? I've been accumulating for millions of years and had a moment of enlightenment. That's why I have today's achievements. Do you think there's a difference? What about me? Qin Zhao asked. You. Old Turtle looked at Qin Zhao. Just follow your own thoughts. No one's path is always wrong. I know. Different paths lead to the same goal, right? Qin Zhao pursed his lips. Are you, I'm going to break through the void. Old Turtle nodded. It can really shatter the void? Are you still using that black trident? Old Turtle asked. Yeah, what's wrong? Give it to me. Qin Zhao obediently handed the black trident to Old Turtle. Old Turtle waited. For you now, it's a bit light. Old Turtle tapped the handle of the black trident with his finger and made a hole in it. Then, Old Turtle took out a huge inner core. The inner core that was more than 30 meters in diameter gradually shrank under Old Turtle's spell. Shrinking to the size of a finger, Old Turtle inserted the inner core into the handle of the black trident. Then, using the same trick, Old Turtle poked 12 holes on the black trident. Each hole was filled with an inner core. Old Turtle, you're rich now. Don't you care about your life? My immortal power is too abundant, Old Turtle said generously. It's been accumulated for millions of years. It doesn't matter if I lose a few inner cores. I'm afraid I won't be able to teach you any more after I leave. Qinzhao wasn't thinking about that. He just didn't know how many days and nights they'd been together. Qinzhao always felt suffocated. This might really be the last time he left. Old Turtle, what level are you exactly now? According to Taoist standards, I'm a golden immortal now. Just then, a huge black hole suddenly appeared in the wound. The wind started blowing. Old Turtle took a deep breath. I'm really leaving this time. Just like I said, there's no wrong path. Old Turtle's body slowly floated up. Qinzhao rarely acted emotionally, but now, he could only secretly wipe away his tears. Old Turtle, have a safe journey. In the air, Old Turtle suddenly cursed. Fuck! I'm not going to die. Can't you say something auspicious? Then we'll meet again in the world. The path to immortality is long. If we're lucky, we'll meet again. Old Turtle flew into the black hole and it disappeared. The entire river map was empty. Qinzhao held the black trident in his hand. Qinzhao felt that the black trident was extremely heavy. It had been a long time since Qinzhao felt something that could make him feel heavy. But this heaviness made Qinzhao's hands feel incredibly smooth. There were 12 internal alchemy embedded in the black trident. Only one internal alchemy surged with immortal power, which complemented Qinzhao's own. The other 11 internal alchemy were lifeless. Not a single bit of immortal power seeped out. What's this? Do I have to undo the seal myself? After returning to the modern world, Qinzhao still couldn't hide his disappointment. An old friend had left forever, just like that. It was nice to say that they would meet again. But Qinzhao knew that they would never see each other again. Master, Mr. Zhang Tianyi is calling. Connect. Hello, Mr. Zhang, what's up? I've been in Japan for a few days. I've been wandering around the sealed area. The situation is more serious than I thought. It's best if you can come to Japan in a few days. Okay, I'll go as soon as possible. I'll contact you when I get there, Qinzhao said. After hanging up, Qinzhao called West. West, the situation in Japan is urgent. I'll go there first. You guys get ready too. We'll go in 2 days. Okay, President. After hanging up, Qinzhao thought about it. Fei Lai, are we going to Japan? Sure. Fei Lai nodded. We can go to Japan for a while. I told Robio that we'll go back to the coastal rescue team at the beginning of October. Can I not go? Little Larissa is still young, Qinzhao said unwillingly. When little Jerlin was her age, she already knew how to take care of herself. Fei Lai had become moldy from staying at home. After all, she'd been pregnant for 10 months and had been in confinement for almost 3 months. Of course, the so-called confinement was actually Fei Lai's rehabilitation. Qinzhao knew that he couldn't stop her, so he could only agree. He'd have the 5 Tiger Generals go to Angel Beach later. Portia, help me book some tickets to Tokyo. Boss, are you going to Tokyo? Yes, you too. Can I go too? Portia was overjoyed. After all, she could go on a public holiday. Qinzhao chuckled. Public holiday? I'm a capitalist. Why would she think that she could go? Qinzhao planned to have Portia go with Fei Lai to carry the bags. Chapter 1696. The next day, Ruan Faxpen delivered the magic underwear that Qinzhao needed. It wasn't a complicated magic item. Portia busied herself in Qinzhao's house. Qinzhao bowed, Fei Lai bowed, Jerlin bowed, and Larissa bowed. There were more than 20 suitcases of various sizes. Portia, book a hotel, Qinzhao said. Book the hotel for 10 days. Also, rent 10 business cars. Boss, just a few of us. Do we need to book a hotel? Portia stared at Qinzhao with wide eyes. It's not just a few of us. Gaia and the others are going? Fei Lai asked. Yes, everyone. Qinzhao nodded. Dad, are we taking a plane? Jerlin was clearly excited. Kids all like to travel far. Their flight was at 8 tonight. It was a direct flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo. Qinzhao found some time to call Lan. Call on, my family and I are going to be away for a while. Stay at my house for a few days and help me take care of my pets. Also, you can drive my family car. Sure, no problem. Can I have a party at your house? You just have to clean it up. If I find the house in a mess when I get home, I'll kill you. I promise, I won't make a mess, Colin said excitedly. He knew how luxurious and advanced Chen Zhao's Mingwe villa was. Come and help me carry my luggage later. There were more than 20 suitcases. Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and Portia couldn't carry them at all. Little Jerlin and little Larissa were also there. They couldn't help at all. Instead, they needed special care. A while later, Cao Lan came over. Hello, Miss Fei Lai. Hello, Cao Lan. Did Chen force you to do hard labor again? You should be tougher with him. You can't always be led by the nose. Fei Lai smiled at Cao Lan. No, Mr. Chen treats me very well. Chen Zhao pulled Cao Lan over. Come with me. Register a level 2 authority in the housekeeper system. Otherwise, you won't even be able to enter the house. Then, Chen Zhao brought Cao Lan to the basement. If you want to cultivate, you can do so here. Although it was a basement, the lighting was actually very good. On both sides of the sphere was a wooden walkway. The periphery was made of transparent glass, allowing one to see the sea outside. The elements here are more active than outside. You'll be able to train several times faster here than outside. Colin's eyes lit up, but he didn't have time to think. Chen Zhao grabbed Cao Lan and pressed a few more numbers on the lock on the wall. Follow me. The basement was completely dark. As Colin entered the lower basement, he felt a chill down his spine. Mr. Chen, is there no light on this floor? Pa. Chen Zhao clapped his hands and the lights in the room lit up. In that instant, Colin's scalp went numb. This was because there was a 3-headed giant dog lying in front of them. Cerberus! Colin screamed. Shut up! Chen Zhao shouted. Just then, all 3 heads woke up. They opened their eyes and walked toward Chen Zhao. The 3 heads fought to lick Chen Zhao. Let's get to know each other. This is Cao Lan, my friend. He'll take care of you for a while in my place, Chen Zhao said. They're little 3, little 2, and little 1. The 3 heads have different consciousnesses. During the day, they'll sleep at home. At night, you can let them out to play. This switch can open up the tunnel. Colin's mind was in a mess. Chen Zhao slapped the back of Colin's head. Stop spacing out. Wake up. You're a spiritualist now, too. You don't have to be so surprised by a Cerberus. Oh. What? What do they eat? Will they? No, they don't eat humans. Even if they do, they'll eat human souls. Of course, they like dog food more. Okay. You can have a party at my house, but you can't let anyone stay overnight, Chen Zhao said. My family has too many secrets. If ordinary people find out, I might kill them. Do you understand what I mean? Yes. I understand. Good. Chen Zhao nodded. Go back to sleep. Wake up after dinner. I'll introduce you to the other pets at home. You might not have seen some of them yet. When Cao Lan saw Raymond, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Raymond's body reminded him of the anaconda disaster. But what surprised him the most was that the boss of Chen Zhao's pets was actually a little kitten. A very cute little kitten. Chen Zhao brought Kellen to the yacht. I have 5 sharks and a family of dolphins at home. You need to feed them too. Of course, you don't have to feed them too often. Give me your bank card and I'll transfer some money to you. Just buy a cow every 2 days. Mr. Chen. Are you sure they won't bite? They won't. Chen Zhao bent down and patted the back of the yacht. The fins of the 5 sharks were already out of the water. Come and recognize him. You've seen him before. He's Cao Lan. He'll be responsible for taking care of the next few. Chen Zhao told them everything he needed to. There were too many family members. Chen Zhao had to explain everything clearly. Chen Zhao also hoped to bring them to Japan. But that wasn't realistic, even if Qin Zhao could charter a plane. Animals needed a lot of documents to enter and leave a country. By the time they were done, half a year would have passed. Kalon was still in shock at the moment. Also, there are two big guys in the sea, Qin Zhao said. They rarely show themselves, but don't panic if you see them. Kalon felt that his willpower was already strong enough. He'd already seen Cerberus. What else could scare him? Qin Zhao didn't say much. Amon and Little Nine lived in a trench far away. They usually didn't show themselves. Qin Zhao took out 2 demonic crystals. Put these 2 away first. If you encounter any problems you can't handle in the nearby waters, hit them. My pets will come and save you. Any problem? Of course it can't be any problem, but most of the problems can be solved by my pet. Mr. Chun, can I drive this yacht? Yes. The main control system is connected to the housekeeper system. You have level 2 authority now. Qin Zhao paused. Also, I'll be monitoring everything in the house through the housekeeper system. You better take good care of my kids. Of course, no problem. Kalon felt a bit of pressure. You can't stay in my and the kids' bedroom. You can choose any other room. Chapter 1697. Kalon helped Qin Zhao carry the 20 or so suitcases to the check-in counter. Qin Zhao patted Kalon's shoulder. I'll leave my family to you. Okay, Mr. Qin. Don't worry. I'm going into the departure lounge. You can go back too. Feili and Portia each carried a child. I want to walk. I want to walk. Put me down. Little Jerlin squirmed in Portia's arms and jumped onto the ground. Coincidentally, Qin Zhao walked over and picked up Jerlin. Jerlin, if you mess around in public, I won't go easy on you, Qin Zhao threatened. Dad, I'm not messing around. Jerlin puffed her cheeks and crossed her short arms in front of her chest. Qin Zhao put Jerlin on his neck. Little Larissa, who was in Feili's arms, saw that her sister could sit on her dad's neck. She immediately tried to fight for the spot with Jerlin. Qin Zhao was helpless. He could only take Larissa. He had Jerlin moved to the left. Then, the 2 guards hung on Qin Zhao's shoulders. Bringing a child out was really troublesome. Ha! Westana stopped in her tracks. She looked at the familiar figure in front of her. She knew that Qin Zhao had 2 daughters. She even had photos of his 2 daughters. However, she didn't expect to see Qin Zhao here. Qin Zhao felt Westana's gaze and turned his head. He realized that Westana and the 20 or so people behind her were all spiritualists. What he didn't expect the most was that Sam Mira was also a member of the anti-terrorism security team. Sam Mira also saw Qin Zhao. A few people in the psionic team glared at Qin Zhao. Some even rubbed their palms together. Especially Tank, who had been kicked away by Qin Zhao last time. Tank, control your anger, Brit said in a low voice, tugging at Tank. This isn't the place to fight. This was the departure lounge. There were hundreds of normal people here. It definitely wasn't a good place to fight. Qin Zhao retracted his gaze and looked at Portia. Portia, help me get a VIP card for all the airlines, he said loudly. I don't like places where random people can sneak in. Feili rolled her eyes at Qin Zhao. She walked to Qin Zhao's side and took little Jerlin and Larissa. He asked in a low voice. Enemy? A bunch of idiots, Qin Zhao said, shrugging. They treat me and the supernatural organization as competitors. With his hands in his pockets, Qin Zhao looked relaxed as he faced the 20 or so aggressive people in front of him. Vestana walked over. She still had to put on a respectful and friendly face. Hi, Mr. Qin, how are you? Not bad, Miss Vestana. What do you think of my suggestion? What suggestion? Vestana was stunned for a moment and asked in puzzlement. Didn't I say that I want you to work for me? You should know that I am very rich, right? How much is your current salary? I can give you double it. Vestana smiled bitterly. She knew that Qin Zhao was messing with her. But she couldn't get angry. Hee hee. I think I've also said that I'm very satisfied with my current job, and I have no intention of changing jobs. That Hannah was Mansari's right-hand man. She didn't just have a salary. She also had connections, resources, and power. Chen Zhao couldn't give her all of this. Even if she really worked for Chen Zhao, he wouldn't trust her either. Because from the moment she chose her own side, she couldn't change sides. Chen Zhao sighed. What a pity! How can a pretty girl like you stand being with a bunch of idiots? Chen Zhao's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. At least, the people in the psionic team heard it. Some were unmoved by Chen Zhao's words. Others were furious at Chen Zhao's words. Mr. Chen, where are you going? Vestana decided to change the topic. If she continued to let Chen Zhao provoke her so openly, her subordinates would probably lose control sooner or later. It wasn't a good idea to fight here. Traveling. Do you want to tag along? Chen Zhao asked, smiling. Hee hee. I'm afraid not. We still have a mission. We'll go now. Bye. Coincidentally, my flight is boarding time too. Huh? Mr. Chen, are you going to Tokyo? You too? Yes, Mr. Chen. Are you going for the Scarlet Mission? I'm not interested in the Scarlet Mission. Good luck. Vestana heaved a long sigh of relief. If Chen Zhao interfered, they really wouldn't be able to compete. The psionic team had also participated in the Turan ghost ship encirclement on Omar Island. But the result wasn't ideal. Moreover, the Turan ghost ship had completely disappeared after leaving Ma Island. Then, news spread that the mission had been completed. Vestana suspected that Chen Zhao was the one who'd completed the mission. This news wasn't confirmed by either party. But Vestana still firmly believed it. Other than Chen Zhao, no one could make Turan disappear without anyone knowing. Then, Blood Mary 23 came to Los Angeles. Vestana also suspected that it had something to do with Chen Zhao. This made her feel even more pressured. Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization had given her too much pressure, especially Chen Zhao. He was like a mountain that could never be crossed. He was firmly pressing down on her heart. Vestana had tried to contact Blood Mary 23 and wanted to work with her. But she only said, "Are you qualified?" and chased her away. Vestana didn't even have a temper. She could target Chen Zhao in secret. This was because Chen Zhao didn't have any social or political influence without his identity as a cleric. But Blood Mary 23 was different. She was a member of the European royal family, a big noble, and the spiritual leader of the European spiritual world. She was a grandmotherly figure in the entire spiritual world. All these identities made it so that even if Vestana was scolded in front of her, she could only hide her head and keep a low profile. Vestana thought so. Of course, Mansari thought so too. They thought that Chen Zhao's only advantage was his power. If his power was replaced, he would lose his value. Mansari felt that with the resources of the Anti-Terrorism and Security Department, or even the government, they had a chance to surpass Chen Zhao. They didn't have to fight him head-on. They just had to prove that they could solve all problems. Of course, not having a fight was also their default rule. Fighting wouldn't benefit anyone. After Chen Zhao boarded the plane, he realized that he was sitting in the same cabin with Vestana and the psionic team. Other than the 3 seats for Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and Portia, the other seats were all for the psionic team. 9 Heavens God Emperor. Chapter 1698. The atmosphere was very awkward. Of course, Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't feel awkward. Instead, he felt that this trip would be much more fun. After all, Los Angeles was almost 9,000 kilometers away from Tokyo. They had to stay in the same cabin for almost 11 hours. Of course, many people in the psionic team wanted to use this opportunity to take revenge on Chen Zhao. Both sides had a tacit understanding, but at the same time, they all had their own plans. On the other side of the aisle beside Chen Zhao sat 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman. The woman was very young. She wore a headset and listened to music. Moreover, the girl's music was very loud. Even with headsets, the people next to her could hear the sound. The other two men were both in their 30s. One was wearing casual clothes with his hat pulled down. He seemed to be asleep. The other man was dressed very unconventionally. There were tattoos on his exposed skin. His nose and ears were pierced and hung with some accessories. "Lothar, teach that arrogant guy a lesson." The guy nudged his companion beside him. Noxus looked up at his non-mainstream companion. Then he glanced at Qin Zhao from the corner of his eye. "Caesar, we better behave. That guy seems to have a powerful background. We better not joke around on the plane." Caesar looked displeased. "If you don't dare, I'll do it myself." "We're on a plane," Lothar said, frowning. "What are you afraid of?" Caesar said nonchalantly. "I'm not threatening the plane." Just then, the flight attendant walked over with a dining cart. Caesar's eyes brightened and he released a contract evil spirit. The contract evil spirit secretly reached out its hand and pushed the Coke bottle on the dining cart. The bottle fell toward Qin Zhao, who was sitting at the edge. Oh no. The flight attendant couldn't stop him in time. However, Qin Zhao immediately reached out and caught the Coke bottle before it spilled out. "Sorry, sir, it's my mistake." The flight attendant hurriedly apologized. "It's fine." Qin Zhao shook his head. Of course, he knew what had happened. It wasn't the flight attendant's fault, so there was no need to vent on her. "Sir, do you need anything?" "No, thank you." Qin Zhao waved his hand. The flight attendant pushed the cart over. Both Caesar and his contracted evil spirit made provocative expressions at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao turned his head and looked at the man and the ghost. An eerie smile appeared on his face. Qin Zhao made a gesture of flicking marbles, but there were no marbles on his fingertips. "Pa!" He abruptly flicked his thumb, and a popping sound was heard. Caesar's contract evil spirit was instantly pierced through. "Ah!" The contract evil spirit shrieked and disappeared. This was a move that Qin Zhao had just come up with. In fact, the principle was the same as the fist shadows. However, its power was reduced by tens of thousands of times. The joints of the thumb were too short, so he could only exert force through the tendons of the fingers. Therefore, even Qin Zhao couldn't unleash too much power. It was more than enough to destroy an evil spirit. If he wanted to increase his power, his index and middle fingers had to be more powerful. However, Qin Zhao did not want to create a hole in the cabin. Caesar stood up abruptly and stared at him furiously. "You, Caesar, sit down. What are you doing?" Lothar immediately pulled Caesar back. He saw the exchange of blows between the two sides. He felt that Qin Zhao had gone too far. He destroyed Caesar's evil spirit in one move. However, Caesar was the one who attacked first. Therefore, Qin Zhao's counterattack was reasonable. However, he definitely could not let the conflict escalate. After all, they were all on the plane. If the plane was damaged, none of them could escape. "He killed my ama!" Caesar roared. Everyone in the cabin had their eyes on Caesar. "Boss, is he talking about you? Did he say you killed someone?" Portia asked, confused. "That's an idiot. I don't know him, and I didn't kill anyone," Qin Zhao said nonchalantly. The flames of anger in Caesar's eyes couldn't be extinguished. He glared at Qin Zhao. But in the end, he still sat down. "Nir, help me!" Caesar could only ask the girl beside him for help. The girl called Nir took off her headset. "What? What did you just say?" She didn't seem to know what had just happened. "The guy beside me killed my ama." "Oh, and then?" "I'm going to take revenge." "Help me." "No, Ms. Vestana said that we can't fight in public." Nir put on her headset again. Caesar was furious. His two friends weren't willing to help him. After all, most people were still rational. Caesar's, on the other hand, was infuriated. He gritted his teeth and kept staring at Qin Zhao. "Dad, I want to drink Coke," Jerlin said. "Little bastard!" Caesar cursed in a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft. But in the next instant, Caesar let out a blood-curdling scream. For some reason, his nose ring was suddenly ripped off. Hearing the scream, the flight attendant ran over. "Sir, what happened?" Caesar's face was covered in blood. "It's him! It's him! He tore off my nose ring!" Caesar raised his voice and yelled unscrupulously. However, the flight attendant didn't see Chen Zhao leave his seat at all. She also didn't see what Chen Zhao's dark lava had done. "Flight attendant, I don't want this trip to be interrupted by a mad dog. If that's the case, I'll complain to your airline," Chen Zhao said calmly. "Also, my daughter needs a Coke." "Thank you." Okay." The flight attendant looked at Caesar. "Sir, I need you to stay calm. Don't attack or harass other passengers for no reason. Are you an idiot? It's clearly him. He did it." Caesar was even more furious. "Caesar, if you don't want to participate in this activity, then fuck off." Sitting in the front seat, Britt stood up and said, "I need you to shut up from now on. Can you do that?" Britz's face was dark and his eyes were dark. He didn't object to his subordinates causing trouble. But he hoped that his subordinates could understand the situation. Only then did Caesar sit down and shut his mouth. But his eyes were still filled with indignation. After the flight attendant left, Chen Zhao stood up and walked to Caesar's side. "You better watch your mouth. Otherwise, I'll cut off your tongue, crush your nipples, dig out your eyeballs, and stomp on them." Caesar didn't dare speak because he felt something pressing against his back in his chair. It was poking out and pricking his skin. "Good boy." Chen Zhao patted Caesar's cheek. Chapter 1699. Caesar was both embarrassed and angry. He hated Chen Zhao, but he hated that his companions ignored him even more. Portia glanced at Fei Lai beside her. Fei Lai didn't seem surprised by Chen Zhao's actions at all. Chen Zhao returned to his seat. He still had a smile on his face. Not everyone in the psionic team could remain calm. However, given the situation, no matter how angry they could only keep it to themselves. On one hand, Westana had explicitly forbidden the psionic team from attacking Chen Zhao. On the other hand, they had to consider their own situation before doing anything on the plane. Some tricks might not work on Chen Zhao. In the end, they still chose to give up. Including the takeoff and landing, they would have to stay in the cabin for 11 hours. Even Chen Zhao felt extremely bored. Unfortunately, the psionic team didn't plan on making trouble for Chen Zhao anymore. Helpless, Chen Zhao could only go to sleep. After a few short breaks, the plane was still in the sky. "Dear passengers, this flight is about to arrive at Tokyo International Airport." To all the passengers on the plane, the voice was undoubtedly heavenly. Chen Zhao opened his arms and stretched. They'd finally reached their destination. The plane landed smoothly. First-class passengers didn't need to squeeze with regular passengers to get off the plane. So, after the plane stopped, Chen Zhao and the others couldn't wait to get off. So tiring. Even someone as patient as Fei Lai couldn't help but feel uncomfortable about this boring flight. "So we still have to buy a private plane," Chen Zhao said, empathizing. "This journey is too painful." Portia glanced at Chen Zhao. Was Chen Zhao really that rich? He'd actually decided to buy a private plane. Moreover, he'd made this decision just because of this trip. Wasn't it a bit too hasty? They picked up the suitcases. There were more than 20 suitcases. It was really too much. Big suitcases were stacked on top of each other. It was truly spectacular. The three of them spent a great deal of effort and barely managed to arrange the 20 or so suitcases properly. But right at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly attacked. The suitcases collapsed instantly. Portia looked at the suitcases all over the ground and almost broke down. Chen Zhao frowned and looked in another direction. The psionic team led by Westana was also waiting for the suitcases. A few of them looked at Chen Zhao with evil intentions. Chen Zhao didn't know who did it. However, Chen Zhao was sure that one of them had done it. Chen Zhao walked up to Vestana with a smile. "Miss Vestana, can I borrow a few of your men to help me transport my luggage?" Vestana stared at him coldly. "No." Chen Zhao turned to the other members of the psionic team and gestured with his marbles. Pa! Caesar screamed and fell to the ground. What are you going to do? Do you want to start a war? Vestana growled angrily in a low voice. You guys are used to playing tricks behind people's backs. Now I've decided. Don't you want to do the Scarlet Mission? I'll stop you from doing it. I'll make you come here for nothing, so your best choice now is to turn back. Vestana was also angered by Chen Zhao, but she had to suppress her anger. Blitz, take a few people and help Mr. Chen send his luggage out of the airport. Very well, Miss Vestana. Blitz nodded with a cold expression. With the help of the psionic team, it was much easier to transport the luggage. Portia had rented a car in the airport parking lot. Britz's men didn't play tricks on Chen Zhao anymore. After a while, Chen Zhao's group finally arrived at the hotel. As soon as they reached the lobby, the receptionist said, Hello, sir. Hello, sir, there are no more private rooms in the hotel. The receptionist said in Japanese. Just then, Portia walked up and said in Japanese, We booked your room. Please arrange a few people to send our luggage to our rooms. Then, Portia turned to Chen Zhao and Fei Lai. Boss, Miss Fei Lai, please take out your passports for registration. As the guests who booked the entire hotel, the hotel immediately took action. No matter how one looked at it, they had a reason to be cautious. The hotel manager personally led the way. Behind him, a group of waiters helped Chen Zhao's group with their luggage. Portia also relaxed, which was rare. Portia had even prepared a luxurious suite for herself. There were plenty of empty rooms anyway. Her room wouldn't make a difference. The hotel manager was called Keiichi Ikeda. He was well-spoken and knowledgeable. His English was fluent, and there was no accent. He also knew that Chen Zhao and Fei Lai were the leaders. So, he stayed beside the two, complimenting Chen Zhao's handsomeness and Fei Lai's beauty. He also kept calling Jerlin and Larissa princesses and angels. Chen-san, do you need me to prepare a local guide for you? Sure, I need a professional one. Chen Zhao nodded. Fei Lai was here to play. Chen Zhao couldn't stay by her side all day. It was best to have a professional guide. Also, my men will arrive in 2 or 3 days. You should be prepared. Yes, Chen-san. There were only 5 guests in the entire hotel, including Jerlin and Larissa. But the hotel didn't dare to be slow. After all, Chen Zhao had booked the entire hotel for $600,000 a day. Knock, knock. Please come in. Keiichi Ikeda led a petite girl in. This girl was very much in line with the characteristics of Japanese girls. Chen-san, Miss Fei Lai, this is Chio Kaori. She's the guide I found for you. Chio Kaori walked up and bowed. Chen-san, Miss Fei Lai, hello? I'm Chio Kaori. Chen Zhao glanced at her. You're not a professional guide, are you? Chen-san, I'm a student at Waseda University, but I grew up in Tokyo, so I know all the streets and alleys. Chio Kaori said seriously. I travel everywhere every year, so I know most of the attractions in Japan like the back of my hand. I can provide the best service. My professionalism isn't any lower than a professional guide's. That's enough, Fei Lai said, trying to smooth things over. I don't need a professional guide. They didn't plan on touring all of Japan. Since Fei Lai says so, I don't have any objections. Chen Zhao shrugged. Actually, Chen Zhao wasn't referring to Chio Kaori's professionalism as a guide. It was because he could sense the magic power on Chio Kaori. Of course, magic was a Western term. In China, it was called mana, and in Japan, it was called spiritual power. Anyway, it was the same thing. Chapter 1700. Ginza was the most prosperous area in Tokyo, and even the whole of Asia. It was also the most famous commercial area. Along with New York's Fifth Avenue and Paris's Champs-Élysées, it is one of the world's 3 largest financial and shopping centers. Ginza is known as the heart of Tokyo. It receives 3.6 million visitors every day. Standing at the crossroads, you might even be pushed by the flow of people. Ginza was also one of the 3 most unique attractions in Japan. The three scenic spots in Japan were Mount Fuji, Kyoto, and Ginza, representing nature, history, and modernity respectively. 4 bodyguards stood around Feilai, Portia, and Chiyokawari. Qin Zhao had hired them to protect Li and the 2 kids. 4 tall and burly bodyguards helped the 3 women and 2 children block the crowd. Shopping was a woman's nature. Feilai didn't stay in the hotel for long before she couldn't wait to go shopping in Ginza. Qin Zhao went to other places. After changing, he went to another scenic spot, Tokyo Grand Shrine. The main sacrifice here was the Amaterasu great god and the harvest god Yumijin. Of course, it was also because Zhang Tianyi lived here. Tokyo Grand Shrine was one of the first shrines to hold modern weddings in front of gods, and it was open to the public. The earliest wedding to be held in Tokyo Daijingu was in Meiji year 33, when the great prince was married. The Tokyo Grand Shrine was also divided into the outer sect and the inner sect, just like the mountain sect in China. The outer shrine was open for visitors to visit and worship. The inner gate was presided over by the Miko, who only received some fellow Taoists. When Qin Zhao arrived at the Tokyo Grand Shrine, it was already dusk. Of course, Qin Zhao wasn't interested in worshipping the Japanese god either. Just then, a guard stopped him. He spoke Japanese that Qin Zhao couldn't understand. Qin Zhao spoke to him in English. In the end, the 2 of them looked at each other speechlessly. Qin Zhao had no choice but to call Zhang Tianyi. After a while, a man dressed in ancient clothes with his hair tied up in a bun and a string of Buddhist beads in his left hand hurriedly walked out in wooden clogs. "Hello, are you Qin Zhao, Mr. Qin?" The man spoke fluent Chinese. Qin Zhao could still hear the accent, but he could understand it. "Yes." Qin Zhao nodded. "Please follow me." Perhaps it was because he was wearing wooden clogs. The man seemed to be in a hurry when he walked. Moreover, it kept making cracking sounds. Anyway, Qin Zhao felt bad listening to it. "How should I address you? I'm Nagai Okada. My Buddhist name is Seiwa. I'm the pillar monk here." "A monk?" Qin Zhao knew that Japanese monks could get married. The rules and regulations of the Zen sect did not need to be followed here. "You speak Chinese very well. I once studied Buddhism on Mount Wutai," Monk Xinghe said. Finally, he arrived at the inner sect, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth suddenly became clear. Qin Zhao knew that there were feng shui masters in China who could gather qi and spiritual energy. This place was full of spiritual qi, so they probably used this method to gather qi. This feng shui qi gathering method itself was harmless. The more abundant the spirit qi, the higher the possibility of a spirit controller appearing, and vice versa. Therefore, this method of plundering the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the surrounding area. At most, it would reduce the probability of a spiritualist appearing in the surrounding houses. There were no other problems. Unhurriedly, Qin Zhao followed behind Saint and the monk. Xinghe also slowed down his pace. Just then, a few people came over. In the lead was Zhang Tianyi and an old woman. The old woman wore an ancient white robe. It looked like the witch costume Qin Zhao saw in anime. "Mother, Taoist master." Xinghe bowed and cupped his hands. To be honest, Qin Zhao really did not understand some of the customs in Japan. The mother was a witch, the son was a monk, and they ran a shrine. Was this a monk's temple or a shrine? "Qin Zhao, you're finally here." "Ha!" Zhang Tianyi was as disrespectful as usual. He put his hand on the old woman's shoulder. "Yoko, let me introduce you. This is Qin Zhao. I met him in America. He's a very outstanding young man." Qin Zhao really suspected that the old woman was his lover. The old woman beside Zhang Tianyi studied Qin Zhao and then said in a kind tone, "Hello, Mr. Qin." "Hello?" Qin Zhao did not know how to address her. "I'm Yoko Bai, the witch of the shrine." Yoko Bai looked at Qin Zhao and studied him carefully. She was very curious about Qin Zhao. What was so special about this young man that Zhang Tianyi respected so much? But after looking for a long time, she could not see anything. The young man looked very ordinary. He did not have any aura. I've been by teacher's side for 20 years. I've never seen him respect someone so much, Yoko Bai said. Mr. Chen, I wonder if you can open my eyes. So she was Zhang Tiany's student. But then again, Zhang Tiany's age made sense. Most spiritualists in the world were his juniors. Yoko Bai was old, but she was at most 80 or 90 years old. Chen Zhao chuckled. I'm just a strengthening spiritualist. There's nothing special about me. Zhang Tiany also smiled but did not speak. Chen Zhao had promised him that he could not reveal his strength. Zhang Tiany also expressed his understanding. Everyone's situation was different, so they made different decisions. A few decades ago, before Chen Zhao was the leader of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sect, he had also hidden his strength. Then, after becoming the leader of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sect, he had to display his strength to solidify his position so that others would not dare to covet it. Now, Chen Zhao only needed to pretend to be Zhang Tiany's junior. Mr. Chen, can you show me your Dharma? Yoko Bai asked. Chen Zhao looked at Zhang Tiany, who looked away. Since he did not speak, it meant that he agreed. How do you want me to show you? There's a monster locked up in the back mountain of this shrine, Zhang Tiany said. You can use it to practice. Hearing Zhang Tiany's words, Yoko Bai and the people in the shrine were all shocked. Teacher, that monster, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Zhang Tiany waved his hand. Since Zhang Tiany had said so, Yoko had no reason to object. Anyway, Zhang Tiany was here, so they did not need to worry about trouble. Everyone present was very confident in Zhang Tiany's strength. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was the top person in the spiritual world. But for Zhang Tiany to request to use that monster for practice, either he had a deep grudge against Zhang Tiany, or he was really capable. Chen Zhao was then brought to the back of the mountain. Then, he saw the monsters for him to practice with. Chapter 1701. In the clearing in the back mountain, a monster's limbs were bound by several chains. The other ends of the chains were nailed to the trees with kunai. There was a talisman hanging on each kunai. How were monsters and demons differentiated? The ones in hell were demons. On the other hand, most demons were born from certain creatures or objects after they gained sentience. Of course, they could also be a collective of some kind of emotion. This demon looked like a burly monk. He was bare-chested and his limbs were ridiculously thick. His figure was also very tall. There was a ghost face on the back of his head. Ghost face Buddha, half demon. The ghost face Buddha sat on the ground. His arms were pulled apart by the chains and his head was lowered. However, he had already noticed the newcomer. The surroundings were filled with a thick demonic aura and the smell of blood. This meant that the monster was very powerful. However, it wasn't so powerful that it couldn't be destroyed. What do you need me to do? Kill him? Hikari, Yoko, and Xinghe, as well as the retainers behind them, all smiled. He was originally a Buddha statue in a temple, Zhang Tiany said. But the temple wasn't clean and polluted the statue, turning it into a demon. He killed everyone in the temple. His body is made of extremely tough alloy steel. Plus, he's demonized, so he's almost indestructible. Even cannonballs can't destroy his body. That little Japanese Ben was really perverted. Was he purposely raising a Buddha statue made of alloy steel to raise a monster? Chen Zhao couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. Japanese onmyojas had the habit of controlling their spirit-branded retainers. They would capture monsters or create their own monsters. Chen Zhao didn't know much about Japan's spiritual world. However, he'd occasionally heard Dong Ye Tianxi mention the situation in Japan. There were a lot of spiritualists in Japan. They could even be compared to China. Moreover, the spiritual world was very active. This was because the Shinto, Yin-yang, and Buddhism of Japan's spiritual world were all born from China. Moreover, they took an unconventional path and created an even more unique method. This caused Japan to be the most troublesome place in other regions. Many people learned a couple of moves and then started to act recklessly. Raising ghosts and monsters had become the norm. Even the Orthodox sects in Japan also raised ghosts and demons. Of course, they were still considered lucky. At least they wouldn't use ordinary people as food. But some people didn't care so much. Therefore, the number of independent spiritualists in Japan was also the largest. It could be said that there were good people and snakes mixed together, and their strength was uneven. Of course, it could not be denied that this kind of environment made Japan's supernatural world exceptionally prosperous and lively. Experts and geniuses also emerged one after another. Chen Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi. Mr. Zhang, if you want to destroy him, even if he's really an invincible Vajra, you can probably crush him, right? There were only a handful of people in the Shangqing realm in this world. On the surface, he was the #1 expert in the world. Chen Zhao didn't believe that he couldn't even deal with this little monster. It's not difficult for me to kill him, but the repercussions are too great. Chen Zhao thought about it, and realized that it was not hard to understand. This monster's greatest strength did not lie in his strength. It was his bug-like physical body. Zhang Tianyi smiled bitterly. It wasn't that he didn't have the ability to kill this monster. If he really wanted to subdue demons, he would be able to do it. But the spells he had on hand that could deal with this ghost-faced Buddha were basically enough to cut off half a mountain. To put it simply, it was like a group of bandits with powerful firepower driving a tank around the city. Normal soldiers couldn't kill them unless the military fired missiles. To Zhang Tianyi, the ghost-faced Buddha was just a little monster. Even your shrine can't deal with this monster? Chen Zhao asked, turning his head. Their situation is similar to mine, Zhang Tianyi said. They can either use a heavy weapon to kill him, but it's also very costly to use it. Chen Zhao suddenly realized that Zhang Tianyi hadn't called him here just to ask him to help him, right? That was quite possible. Zhang Tianyi knew Chen Zhao quite well. Chen Zhao became more and more suspicious that Zhang Tianyi and Shirai Yoko didn't just have a teacher-student relationship. Mr. Chen, do you have a solution? Shirai Yoko asked. As long as I can kill him, I can do anything, right? Of course. Then unseal him, Chen Zhao said. Shirai Yoko looked at Zhang Tianyi, who nodded slightly. Then Zhang Tianyi said to Chen Zhao, Chen Zhao, don't embarrass me. Show me what you've got. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded. Xinghe and the other 3 monks walked to the 4 corners. The 4 monks formed hand seals at the same time and activated their powers. With a clang, the 4 chains loosened at the same time. The ghost-faced Buddha, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground, was instantly freed. Roar! The ghost-faced Buddha roared. It showed its ferocious face as soon as it was free. But it looked at Shirai Yoko, and then at Zhang Tianyi. The guy turned and ran without any psychological burden. He's not stupid, Chen Zhao said. Don't let him run. It'll be troublesome if he escapes. Zhang Tianyi panicked. Chen Zhao moved immediately and stood in front of the ghost-faced Buddha. So fast. Shirai Yoko's eyes lit up. Seeing Chen Zhao, the ghost-faced Buddha pounced at him without thinking. Chen Zhao grabbed the ghost-faced Buddha's fist with one hand and punched its chest with the other. The ghost-faced Buddha let out a strange cry and spat out large amounts of filthy flesh and blood. Its legs fell to the ground like jelly, and it couldn't get up anymore. Apart from Zhang Tianyi, everyone else looked surprised. They were all waiting for the ghost-faced Buddha to get up. But the ghost-faced Buddha couldn't get up anymore. How is this possible? Shirai Yoko went up to check the ghost-faced Buddha's aura. But the ghost-faced Buddha was no longer breathing. The ground was covered with the flesh and blood it had swallowed. It had all been spat out. There was a shocking hole in the ghost-faced Buddha's chest. Through the hole, one could see that the skin was covered with flesh and blood, but the inside was metal. Yoko sucked in a breath of cold air. It ended just like that? She had been waiting to see a fierce battle. To her, one was the ghost-faced Buddha with an almost indestructible body. The other was someone Zhang Tianyi had personally picked and had hidden his strength. There should be an intense battle between the two. But just like that, all the problems were solved. Even the stubborn Shirai Yoko had to admit that Chen Zhao's strength was unfathomable. Chen Zhao's strength was unfathomable, especially his attack power. It was simply astonishing. Shirai Yoko wasn't in the Shangqing realm, so she couldn't feel the existence of the small world. If she knew that Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were on the same level, who knew what she would think? Chapter 1702. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao. He didn't know if it was an illusion. It seemed that Chen Zhao had become stronger in just a few days. Yoko, what do you think? Did I introduce you to the right person? Mr. Chen is indeed unexpectedly powerful, Ryoko said with a sigh. Was this the difference between a major and a secondary spiritual world? Japan's spiritual world was also very active. There were many geniuses, but they couldn't compare to China's spiritual world. However, the two countries' spiritual worlds were different. In Japan's supernatural world, spirit controllers were the majority of the population. The major factions, sects, and government-backed supernatural organizations were secondary. On the other hand, the Huaxia spirit world was the complete opposite. The sects in the Huaxia spirit world were the most powerful. There were unaffiliated people, but there weren't many of them. 99% of them were scammers. After that, the people in the shrine's attitude towards Chen Zhao changed greatly. At the start, they had strong doubts about Chen Zhao. Now, they didn't doubt him anymore. At least, Chen Zhao's attack power had broadened their horizons. It wasn't that the shrines didn't have any trump cards. They had at least hundreds of years of history. It was bullshit to say that they couldn't kill the Ghostface Buddha. But it wasn't worth it to kill the Ghostface Buddha. The price would be huge. So, they chose to imprison and bind him. After seeing Chen Zhao's abilities, Chen Zhao didn't disappoint Zhang Tianyi. At least, it was rare for someone his age. Of course, they didn't think too highly of Chen Zhao. In their eyes, Chen Zhao was a genius of the new generation in China's spiritual world. There was still a huge gap between him and the older generation. Mr. Chen, do you need a Shikigami? Shikigami? Sorry, I don't need one. Chen Zhao rejected Yoko's good intentions. Of course, Yoko's intention was to invest in the future. In her eyes, Chen Zhao would become the leader of China's spiritual world in 30 years. Just like how the Tokyo Grand Shrine had invested in Zhang Tianyi 80 years ago. Of course, investment alone wasn't enough in that era. There was also the political stance of that era. It was also an important factor in maintaining a harmonious relationship with Dragon Tiger Mountain Sage Sect. One must know that in the background of that era, behind the tragedy of the entire nation, the spiritual world was also in turmoil. He didn't need a Shikigami. He had enough pets at home. He wouldn't reject a retainer that could fight alongside him, but could the shrine give it to him? Even if they could, would they be willing to? Yoko also wanted to clarify that the spirit-branded retainer she gave him wasn't bad. Just then, Zhang Tianyi said, Yoko, Chen Zhao really doesn't need it. You can't give him the Shikigami he needs. Sensei, in our shrine, there are many powerful spirit-branded retainers. There are even spirit-branded retainers as powerful as that demon-faced Buddha. Zhang Tianyi rolled his eyes. Was that ghost-faced Buddha considered powerful? All right, he was indeed quite powerful in the shrine, and there was still room for him to grow. But it would be wishful thinking to say that it could help Chen Zhao in battle. Unless Yoko White could give him a Shikigami that was at least in the Shangqing realm. However, it was impossible to find a spirit-branded retainer of this level in all of Japan. Mr. Chen, if you have any trouble in Japan, please come to our shrine, Yoko said. We still have some influence. Since they couldn't rope Chen Zhao in immediately, they could go through the emotional route. It would take longer, but it wouldn't be bad for them. Plus, they didn't think that Chen Zhao could become the leader of the Huaxia spiritual world in one day. Chen Zhao maintained his smile and nodded. As the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. Since Yoko had expressed her goodwill, since Yoko White had expressed her kindness, even if he didn't have anything to do with them, he didn't have to fall out with them. Chen Zhao, are you staying here tonight? No, Chen Zhao said. My family is at the hotel. I'll go back and accompany them tonight. Okay, I'll send you off, Zhang Tianyi said. Okay. Chen Zhao could feel that Zhang Tianyi had something to say to him. After walking out of the Tokyo Grand Shrine, Zhang Tianyi spoke first. Chen Zhao, you shouldn't have brought your family. What's wrong? I went to the forest of trees in Aoki yesterday. The miasma there is even thicker. Even I can't go in, Zhang Tianyi said. Also, there are demons everywhere in Tokyo. The supernatural incidents are 50% higher than the average in the past 10 years. Chen Zhao frowned. It's already affected the city? Yes, the Sengen Shrine on Mount Fuji has issued a warning to the entire Japan, asking all the spiritualists in Japan to gather to deal with the upcoming serious situation. The unsealing of the Killing Stone this time is likely to be another major event after the leakage of the myriad Goblin King's demonic aura 20 years ago. You'd better be mentally prepared. Chen Zhao nodded. He had never been careless. That was the legendary Tamamo no Mei. By the way, since your family is here, it's best for them to stay in Tokyo Grand Shrine. At least there are enough spiritualists there. Even if there's an emergency, they can deal with it in time. If they stay in a hotel and you're not by their side, there's a high chance that something unexpected will happen. Most of the recent supernatural incidents have happened in hotels. It's okay. My people will start coming tomorrow. They're no weaker than the spiritualists in the Tokyo Grand Shrine. Okay. Since you're prepared, I won't say any more. Go back now. If anything happens to the Stone of Slaughter, I'll let you know immediately. Chen Zhao didn't plan on loitering outside. When he returned to the hotel, Chio Kaori happened to be coming out. Mr. Chen, hello? Hello? Chen Zhao nodded. Are you going back now? Yes. Thank you for taking care of my family. Oh, if it's inconvenient for you to go back and forth, you can stay in the hotel. There are many empty rooms here. You can choose from them. My house isn't far from here. Chio Kaori rejected his suggestion. Okay, then goodbye. Chio Kaori had only taken a few steps when she turned around. Mr. Chen. Is there anything else? Are you here for business? Sort of. There's been some infectious diseases in Tokyo recently, so if it's not necessary, don't stay here after you're done, Chio Kaori said. You can come with your family some other time. It's not a good time now. Okay, I'll consider your suggestion. Seeing that Chen Zhao didn't take her words seriously, Chio Kaori could only turn around and leave. Chapter 1703. Chen, you're back, Fei Lai greeted when she saw Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at the corner of the living room. There were more than 20 bags. Some were children's clothes, while others were adult clothes. Is Ginza fun? Not bad. Fei Lai nodded. I'm going to Shinjuku tomorrow. Fei Lai was quite excited about the next day. It was a woman's nature to shop. No one could get rid of that. Have fun. It's a pity I can't be by your side. Go do what you need to do, Fei Lai said. I know you don't like shopping either. Once, Fei Lai had a sudden impulse and accompanied Chen Zhao to buy clothes. Then, Chen Zhao went into a designer store and tried on a set. Then he had the salesperson pack the clothes. From then on, Fei Lai never went shopping with Chen Zhao again. Men would never know the joy of shopping. Oh, tell me where you're going. Tokyo isn't peaceful recently. Got it. Chio Kaori is a spiritualist. If anything happens, stay close to her. Huh! Fei Lai didn't expect Chio Kaori to be a spiritualist. Also, a group of people from the association will be arriving tomorrow. You girls will have company then. Compared to Chio Kaori, Chen Zhao trusted the people from the association more. There were also a few young girls in the association. With them shopping with Fei Lai, Chen Zhao was even more relieved. The next day, Portia went to Chen Zhao and Fei Lai's room. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, who was doing his morning exercise. Fei Lai was feeding Larissa breakfast. Jerlin was sitting beside her and eating too. Portia, help Chen order breakfast. More. Seeing Portia, Feilai said. Come and have breakfast too. No need, Portia said. I've already eaten at the hotel's restaurant. Is it enough for 10? Yes, it's enough, Portia said. 10 is just right. If it's too much, it'll affect his activities. Feilai nodded. It's fine. 10 is just right. If it's too much, it'll affect his activities. Portia was already speechless at Chen Zhao's appetite. In Feilai's opinion, it was just right for her man to eat breakfast for 10. Chen, what's your plan today? Gaia's flight will arrive at noon, Chen Zhao said. I plan to go out for a walk first, and then pick them up at the airport. Shall I go with you? No need, Chen Zhao said. Take the kid out to play. Boss, what about me? Portia heard that Chen Zhao was going to pick someone up. As Chen Zhao's personal assistant, she obviously had a responsibility. However, she was a little reluctant to miss the opportunity to go shopping in Shinjuku. She was also a woman, and she also had no resistance to shopping. And a woman will have a negative IQ in two situations. One was when they were in love, and the other was when they were shopping. Portia had gone shopping with Feilai yesterday. As a result, she was now in a huge debt. On a whim, she actually bought a brand that was worth tens of thousands of dollars. By the time she reacted, she had already maxed out her credit card. He also owed Chen Zhao $50,000. Even though Portia had learned her lesson, she still didn't learn her lesson. Of course, she had also reflected on herself last night. He spent the whole night telling himself not to chop off his hands again. Today, he was just going to look around with Feilai. He was only going to help her carry the shopping bags, not go shopping. Hey, did you buy this dress at Coco yesterday? It's very pretty. It suits you. Feilai looked at Portia, her eyes shining. Feilai, which pair of shoes do you think I should wear? I couldn't decide for the whole morning. The ones under your feet are good. The two women chatted happily, while Chen Zhao became a complete outsider. He couldn't even get a word in. Of course, he didn't understand what they were talking about either. Clang, clang, clang. Hearing the sound, Portia looked up at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was running wildly on the treadmill. The treadmill was already at its maximum speed. However, as Chen Zhao's steps stabilized, his voice also became smoother. In Portia's eyes, Chen Zhao had always been a fitness maniac. This was because every time she saw Chen Zhao, he was almost always working out. Running, boxing, and swimming. She had also seen Chen Zhao hit people. However, she had to admit that she was a bit envious of Chen Zhao's family. Even the youngest, Larissa, could swim in the sea. Jerlin's swimming skills were even better than hers. Feilai and Chen Zhao were even better. However, this family had the capital to do so. Even if they did nothing, they wouldn't starve to death. She didn't have the capital. Just then, Chiyokawari arrived. Chiyokawari glanced at Chen Zhao, who was running wildly on the treadmill. Then she looked away. She was different from extroverted women like Feilai and Portia. Chiyokawari was introverted. She had the gentleness and intelligence of an Asian woman. Miss Chiyo, you're here. Chen, we're going out. Okay, have fun. Feilai and Portia each pushed a stroller out. The bodyguards were waiting for them in the hotel lobby. After breakfast, Chen Zhao also went to the airport. With Tokyo's traffic, it would take at least an hour to get to the airport highway. If there was a city more congested than Huaxia, it would undoubtedly be Tokyo. Chen Zhao had plenty of time, so he didn't need to rush. Suddenly, a girl waved in front of Chen Zhao's car. The girl was dressed like a schoolgirl, the kind of sailor's suit that was very characteristic of Japan. Chen Zhao wasn't driving fast, so he still stopped. What's up? Chen Zhao asked in English. The girl froze. Then she asked in choppy English. You aren't Japanese? No, I'm from China. Can you give me a ride? The girl asked shyly. Was she a virgin? Chen Zhao had heard about Japanese specialties. To be honest, the girl was very cute. At least, she fit Chen Zhao's taste. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao still rejected her. Who knew how many guys she'd slept with? She was obviously underage too. Qin Zhao really wasn't interested in underage girls. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. Chen Zhao shook his head. Qin Zhao was about to roll up the window when the girl grabbed his arm. My house is just up ahead. It's not far. It won't take much time. Was she really just hitchhiking? Qin Zhao hesitated. Okay, get in. Alligato. The girl gave a 90-degree bow and ran into the car happily. There's a park up ahead. Qin Zhao's car arrived at the park. Then two non-mainstream guys with baseball bats appeared in front of him. Qin Zhao immediately understood. This wasn't the legendary Virgin. It was another famous Japanese specialty, badger jumping. Nine Heavens God King. Chapter 1704. Badger jumping was a popular trick all over the world. It was popular in China too. Of course, the most blatant badger jumping was definitely the Japanese. Usually, a girl would disguise herself as a prostitute and look for middle-aged men. She'd lure the prey to a public place like a park or alley and rob them. Usually, these middle-aged men would be too embarrassed to speak up because of their pride. So, they would just swallow their anger. Moreover, Japan was a country where clubs were legal. So, there were more clubs in Japan than in other countries. Most clubs were involved in the underworld. Basically, when a few young people gathered together, they would dare to form a club. After Qin Zhao parked the car, the girl first opened the door. Then, she took Qin Zhao's car key and ran out of the car. There were more than 10 young people in front and behind. They looked like high school students. Hanada, what do you think? I'm good, right? I tricked another rich guy. The girl said proudly as she ran to the car and stood before a young man with a mohawk hairstyle. Qin Zhao got out of the car and looked around. Apart from them, there was no one else in the park. In a big city like Tokyo, most people would go to the city center. No one would come to a remote park like this. Baka, #%yenet, Hanada, he's a foreigner, the girl said. He doesn't understand you. Foreigner? Hanada and Hiko were stunned. Just then, the girl called out to Qin Zhao. Big guy, you better hand over $1 million now. Otherwise, I'll have them beat you up and call the police. Qin Zhao had to admit that these people really had a big appetite. Even yen $1 million wasn't a small amount. Call the police? Qin Zhao couldn't help but laugh. Then call the police. Badger jumping calling the police was the stupidest thing Qin Zhao had ever heard. I'm underage, the girl shouted. If the police come, I'll say that you harassed me and you'll go to jail. It seemed like she was very experienced. She didn't have any stage fright. I don't care, Qin Zhao said nonchalantly. I have money anyway. I can hire a lawyer. Could such a small trick scare Qin Zhao? What a joke. Qin Zhao could teach them how to behave. Calling them the police could only fool those middle-aged uncles. They were afraid of losing their reputation and being gossiped about. So they had some reservations. Even if the possibility was very small. They did not dare to gamble on the consequences of having their families destroyed. But Qin Zhao was not afraid. There is nothing in the world more stupid than a fairy jumping and calling for the police. I'll send you to jail, Qin Zhao said with a gentle smile. Then your parents will know about this. I'll also buy all the news channels so that your pictures and names will be heard all over Japan. Your parents will be ashamed and lose their jobs. In the end, they'll cut all ties with you. But his words were like the words of the devil. The girl shuddered. She already regretted that she had rashly chosen such a prey. As a foreigner, Qin Zhao was clearly not a middle-aged man who could be manipulated by them. Hanada, let's go. This guy said he'll find a lawyer to sue us. The girl had already decided to retreat. Obviously, it was impossible for them to call the police. Baka, this damn foreigner. Wahiko Hanada cursed angrily. I must teach him a lesson. Kazuhiko Hanada raised his baseball bat and took 2 steps forward. He threw it at Qin Zhao's head. If this stick had landed on an ordinary person's head, he would have died. That would definitely result in serious injuries and hospitalization. Qin Zhao reached out and grabbed the bat. Baka! Kazuhiko Hanada tried to pull the bat, but it didn't budge. Qin Zhao walked up and punched Kazuhiko Hanada's chin, breaking it. Kazuhiko Hanada's mouth was full of blood. He pointed at Qin Zhao and yelled, "Beat him! Beat him to death!" Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang. Qin Zhao tilted his body slightly and dodged a youth's fist. Qin Zhao kicked it with his knee. The youth clutched his abdomen and fell down. Qin Zhao picked up the phone. "Hello? President, didn't you say you were going to pick us up? We're already out of the arrival gate, but we don't see you. I'm teaching a group of hooligans a lesson right now," Qin Zhao said. "I don't have time to go. I'll give you my locator and you can come over yourself." As Qin Zhao spoke, he dodged another hooligan's attack. He snatched the baseball bat from the hooligan's hand and swung it casually, causing the hooligan to bleed. In a few seconds, half of the hooligans had already fallen to the ground. The remaining hooligans were all panic-stricken. "Run!" The remaining hooligans turned to run without any sense of loyalty. Thud, 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 all the hooligans paused and broke out in a cold sweat. Qin Zhao now had a machine gun in his hand. The girl was also dumbfounded. How could this be? How could this be? How could he have a gun? Qin Zhao looked at the girl with a smile. "Can you translate for me? If anyone dares to run, I'll shoot him full of holes." Actually, he didn't need the girl to translate at all. Both the hooligans on the ground and the ones who'd been planning to run were too scared to move. He said, "If you dare to move, he'll shoot you," the girl said, trembling. All the hooligans wanted to cry but had no tears. They were actually just high school students. But they never thought something like this would happen. In Japan, club culture was very popular. So, they'd formed a club with honor. In the past, they'd done a few deals without any cost. The process had been smooth and they'd scammed hundreds of thousands of yen each time. But this time, they'd finally run into a ghost. The hunter and the hunted had switched places. This guy actually had a gun, and a machine gun at that. They finally realized the severity of the problem. A while later, Klaus and the others arrived. When the hooligans saw the business class cars, they'd hoped that they were reinforcements. Unfortunately, when the burly Klaus alighted, they immediately realized that these guys weren't reinforcements. Jocelyn and Nash looked at the hooligans curiously. "President, who are they?" "Shove them all into the trunk," Qin Zhao said. "We'll play somewhere else." "President, we don't have much space in the trunk." "It's okay. Even if they die, we'll just dump their bodies." The girl's face was filled with even more fear and despair. These people were real gangsters. They might even be the mafia. They were going to die. They were really going to die this time. These people would definitely kill them all. To Qin Zhao and the others, it was a rare experience to be a gangster once in a while. Chapter 1705. Not long after, a dozen youngsters were dragged out from the back of the carriage. They thought that they were going to suffocate in the trunk. However, when they realized that they were on a barren, trash-filled beach, they couldn't wait to return to the trunk. What did they want? Did they want to dump their corpses? "Go into the sea, all of you," Qin Zhao ordered. The hoodlums' hearts skipped a beat. Some started crying while others knelt down. They were frightened, really frightened. "Sir? I was wrong. Don't kill me." The girl knelt on the ground and hugged Qin Zhao's leg. Qin Zhao pushed her lightly, and she fell to the ground. "I don't need an apology." Bang, 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 Qin Zhao fired his machine gun into the air again. "Go into the sea, or I'll shoot you full of holes." The young men were herded into the sea by Qin Zhao's people. It wasn't cold right now. After all, it wasn't October yet. However, they felt that the seawater was bone-chilling ice. Before long, someone started drowning. Qin Zhao washed the drowning people onto the shore. Among the dozen hoodlums, the longest one struggled in the water for less than 20 minutes. In the end, they all lay on the beach. Only then did Qin Zhao leave with the people from the association. Qin Zhao didn't want to kill them all. They didn't deserve to die yet. Chen, what's the situation with the Killing Stone Seal mission? Gaia asked. Only Gaia didn't participate in the mess just now. If Qin Zhao and the others went overboard, she would probably stop them. It's not good. The seal on the Killing Stone can collapse at any time, Qin Zhao said. Also, according to my friend, the sealed fox, Tamamonome, is very powerful. Compared to you? Everyone looked at Qin Zhao. I'm not sure. She might be stronger or weaker than me. I'm not sure, Qin Zhao said honestly. Anyway, you don't have to participate this time. You can't participate anyway. Just treat this trip to Japan as a vacation. Mr. Tianqi, you'll be their tour guide. Hi, President. Dongye Tianqi, bring me to your bladesmithing workshop, Gakira said with great interest. Although Dongye Tianqi did not belong to the bladesmith workshop, his sect was considered one. In fact, the current sects were very similar to enterprises or companies. There were people who joined and people who left. It didn't say that once one entered the sect, they would have to serve for the rest of their lives. The sword forging workshop was the best sect in Japan for forging weapons, but there weren't many people. Therefore, even though Dongye Tianqi had left the workshop, he still maintained a good relationship with it. Moreover, the blade forging workshop was different from most sections. They were not good at fighting. Dongye Tianqi, for example, was only average in strength, but his weaponsmithing skills were extremely high. Of course, apart from Gakira, the others had no interest in the bladesmithing workshop. I'm going to Disneyland, Moore said. Everyone looked at Moore and then turned their heads away. Moore, how old are you? You still want to go to Disneyland? There's a Disneyland in LA too. It's different. This is Tokyo Disneyland. My goal is to visit all the Disneylands in the world. If you want to go, then go. I won't accompany you. Me too, I won't go either. Everyone expressed their position. How old were they to go to Disneyland? After arriving at the hotel, Qin Zhao checked in. He also told the hotel to prepare. He planned to have a party there. At the same time, he called Fei Lai to inform her that Gaia and the others had arrived. Kaori, there's a party in the hotel later. Do you want to come? Fei Lai asked. Sorry, Miss Fei Lai, Chio Kaori said helplessly. I have something to do at home. I have to rush home after dropping you guys off. Is it urgent? Chio Kaori hesitated and then nodded. Then you can go back first, Fei Lai said. We're fine too. That's not good, Chio Kaori said hesitantly. It's fine, Fei Lai said. We have bodyguards. Of course, the biggest function of these bodyguards now was to carry the bags and do manual labor. Portia had always been depressed. She had spent more than $20,000 today, and it was all borrowed by Fei Lai. When she left in the morning, she had been warning herself. She couldn't buy any more. She couldn't cut off her hands. But when she saw the dazzling lineup of famous brands, she was lost again. When they walked out of the mall, Portia finally realized what had happened. Portia felt that she would never be able to pay back the money. I'll take you back to the hotel, Chio Kaori said dutifully. It won't take long anyway. It wasn't that she was worried about Fei Lai and the others' safety. It was her duty. Of course, even if she wasn't there, the 4 bodyguards would still protect them. These 4 bodyguards were all locals, and they all had gang connections behind them. This was one of the specialties of Japan. The best bodyguards weren't security companies made up of retired soldiers. Instead, they were made up of gangs. If a rich person from another country or country came to Japan, they would hire a security company made up of local gangs. This meant that they accepted the protection of the local gangs. It was expensive, but it was definitely worth it. These bodyguards wouldn't just be dutiful. If something happened, the gangs behind them would also come out to solve the problem. To some extent, they were all trustworthy. They wouldn't allow others to break this rule. Moreover, all the local gangs would follow this rule. If an outsider hired a bodyguard from one of the local gangs, the other gangs wouldn't attack them easily either. The 4 bodyguards had been contacted by the hotel. Each person's daily salary was $20,000. 10 days would be $200,000. 4 people for 10 days would be $800,000. This was actually a form of protection fee. However, Chen Zhao was willing to accept this rule. After all, this was someone else's territory. If Chen Zhao was alone or with his family, he wouldn't have to pay the protection fee. But he had his own things to do. Therefore, it was reasonable to spend some money to ensure his safety. The bodyguards would also do their best to protect their employer. They didn't just receive high pay. They were the representatives of their own clubs. If something happened to them and their employer was hurt, they wouldn't just lose their jobs. Not only would they lose their jobs, but their families would also be implicated. Chapter 1706. Apart from Chen Zhao's family, Portia didn't know anyone else at the party. Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and even little Jerlin knew everyone at the party like the back of their hands. Portia regretted that there were 2 or 3 kids at the party. They seemed to be enjoying Chen Zhao's work too. Gaia, Mr. West didn't come? They'll come tomorrow or the day after, Gaia said. It couldn't be helped. They couldn't let go of all the matters of the association at once. For example, some people had missions. They couldn't let go of them first and finish them when they came back. So, they had to finish the missions first before leaving. The first wave of people who had nothing to do came, and there would be more people coming tomorrow and the day after. In an ordinary apartment, Chio Kaori looked at her sister coldly. When his sister came back, she had some injuries on her body, and her body was also wet. It was as if she'd fallen into the water and been crying in her room. Chio Kaori kicked her sister's door open. Xiao Yi, what's going on? Chio Kaori covered her head with the blanket. Did those guys bully you? Chio Kaori asked. She knew that her sister always skipped school. She even hung out with some hooligans. Chio Kaori wanted to discipline her sister. But she didn't know how. She had her own studies, and she had to work part-time. She was so tired every day. She didn't have enough energy to take care of her sister. But no matter what, Chio Kaori was her sister. They'd depended on each other since young. Now that she knew that her sister was bullied, Chio Kaori couldn't bear it. Chio Kaori couldn't bear it. Right now, she just wanted to help her sister vent her anger. Chio Kaori didn't want to say it either. She was already extremely afraid of the mafia. If her sister offended them, it wouldn't be good. So, she just wanted to bury her fear in her heart. Chio Kaori angrily pulled the cup off her sister's head. Xiao Yi, tell me who hurt you. I'll take revenge for you. You can't do anything, Chio Kaori said, looking at her sister. You don't know anything. Of course, she hated him too. Of course, she wanted revenge. But she knew that they weren't enemies she could fight. They were the mafia. No, I can do it. Trust me. How can I believe you? Who do you think you are? Superhero? Chio asked. The other party is a mafia. Mafia? This is Japan. How could there be a mafia here? It's true. Those people are from the mafia. Chio was also in despair. She didn't expect to flag down a random car. He had thought that it was prey. In the end, the other party turned out to be a mafia. Even if it's the mafia, I will make them pay the price. You can't do anything. The police won't do anything. They won't dare to do anything. Chioya was full of distrust towards her sister. Chio Kaori was very angry. She wanted to tell her sister that she was not ordinary. She had the ability. Unfortunately, she couldn't say it. Because Chioya was an ordinary person. Chio Kaori silently walked out of the room and picked up the phone. Hello, Murata, help me investigate something. Chio Kaori knew who her younger sister was messing around with. So if his sister had encountered the mafia, her accomplices were probably the same. So even if Chioya didn't want to say anything, she also had a way to find clues from her accomplices. On a residential street, a figure slowly wandered on the street. The figure's steps were slow, and he was holding a katana in his hand. The katana's blade was dripping with blood. The man was wearing a samurai costume, and his feet were stepping on wooden clogs. The wooden clogs made a caw-caw sound. Just at this time, a police car stopped at the corner of the street. "Is there a person over there?" Two police officers in the police car pointed not far away. The street lights were slightly dim, which made people feel very uncomfortable. "Baka, is cosplay so reckless? Walking on the street in the middle of the night with a katana, what a bastard!" A police officer got out of the car, pointed at the samurai who was walking over and shouted, "Hey, kid over there, come here." The samurai walked to the dim street light. At this time, the police saw the samurai's body was stained with blood, and the blade was also stained with blood. The samurai's expression was also somewhat unnatural. He grinned, as if he was laughing. His eyes were wide open, and his hair was disheveled. This wasn't a samurai, but more like a man. The police officer was startled and immediately pointed his gun at the samurai. "Stop, don't move!" The samurai raised his katana. The police officer shouted again, "Don't move, move again and I'll shoot, ha ha ha!" The samurai let out a horrifying laugh. That laugh provoked the police even more. Bang! The police opened fire. The samurai's katana slashed through the air. The bullets were cut in half by the katana. Seeing the two cut bullets in front of the samurai, the police officer's expression completely froze. At this time, the samurai once again made his stance. Don't move, put down your katana, put down your katana!" Bang, bang, bang! The police officer's nerves finally snapped, and he fired continuously. "Scatter!" The samurai uttered a single word. The katana drew a few arcs of light in the air. All the bullets were cut down by the samurai. There were no more bullets. The police officer's face paled. The samurai's expression became even more horrified. Chaotic Sakura, the samurai's figure suddenly disappeared. An ear-piercing cutting sound resounded in the air. The two police officers inside and outside the car both froze. Then, the car was suddenly cut in the middle. The two police officers also turned into pieces of meat. The samurai acted as if nothing had happened. His footsteps were still slow. He paced slowly under the night sky. Two hotel waiters were delivering breakfast to Qinzhao and Fei Lai. The two waiters chatted in low voices. "Did you hear? Something happened again last night." "What?" "I heard that in a community street in Akihabara, more than a dozen people died, including policemen. It is said that they were all hacked to death by samurai swords, and their bodies were cut into pieces. When I came here, I passed by the Shineoka area. The entire street there was completely blocked, and a large number of policemen went in and out." Portia looked up and asked, "Where did you say people died?" The two waiters had thought that since they were all foreigners, they wouldn't understand what they were saying. "I'm sorry." The two waiters hurriedly apologized. If the customers complained, they might be fired. After all, they'd be caught saying such things while working. "Did you say something happened in Akihabara?" Portia asked. Their plan today was to go shopping in Akihabara. If something happened there, they might have to change their schedule for the day. Chapter 1707. "Portia, did something happen? I think there was a man in Akihabara last night. He killed people on the streets with a katana." Portia didn't fully understand either. After all, the two waiters didn't know the specifics. They added some guesses of their own. So, what they told Portia wasn't that accurate. Portia wasn't Japanese, so she couldn't completely understand what the waiters were saying. Just then, Jalanash, Asalisa, and Nami walked in. The three of them were definitely shopaholics. Also, because the association sponsored them, each person's spending didn't exceed $100,000 and could be reported to the association. Plus, the three of them were all rich. Their salaries in the association were all high-income people. Even the workers at the periphery were far above the national average. let alone them. Miss Feilai, Portia said worriedly. A murder just happened in Akihabara. Will it be dangerous if we go now? It's fine. We have a lot of people and bodyguards. Just then, Chio Kaori walked in. Kaori, you're here. We should go. Kaori, you don't look well. Did something happen at home? Maybe Chinzhao can help. Thank you, it's nothing. Chio Kaori had been worried about her sister the night before. So, she didn't sleep at all. Of course, she didn't forget her job either. After all, being a tour guide for Feilai and the others for 10 days was equivalent to half a year of her income. Just then, Chinzhao saw a figure behind Chio Kaori. The person's aura was exactly the same as Blackie's. However, his attire was different. He wore traditional Japanese clothing. He held a short scythe in one hand and a chain wrapped around the other. Is this the Japanese death messenger? It seemed that death messengers all over the world had different styles. Chinzhao wondered if the Chinese death messenger was really ox head or horse face. Chinzhao raised an eyebrow. Wait, Chinzhao said. I'll change my clothes and walk around with you. Everyone was astonished, and Portia's face was filled with disbelief. Chinzhao actually wanted to go shopping. According to Feilai, Chinzhao hated shopping to the bone. Now, he actually wanted to go shopping. Osorisa, Jalanash, and Alice all looked regretful. After changing, Chinzhao followed the others out. Chen, are you sure you want to go shopping with us? Autumn Leaf Plains is a second-dimensional Yuan sacred land. Of course, we have to go and take a look. Actually, Chinzhao also read Japanese comics. Of course, Chinzhao wasn't a fanatic. At most, it was a hobby to pass the time. Compared to Shinjuku and Ginza, Akihabara had fewer people. But with at least 1 million visitors a day, it could still be considered prosperous. There were so many business centers in the world, but only a few could receive 1 million visitors a day. Moreover, a large portion of the people here were anime lovers. All kinds of bizarre cosplay could be seen everywhere on the streets. It was also a place of pilgrimage for anime lovers from all over the world. Of course, as one of the shopping centers, this place didn't only have 2D. It was also a shopping mecca. Feilai and the others had already entered a shop. Chinzhao leaned against the railing and watched the crazy women pick out the items. 4 bodyguards stood outside too. Hey! Chinzhao called out to the 4 bodyguards and made a smoking gesture. Give me a cigarette. Sir, I know English. One of the bodyguards took out a cigarette and passed it to Chinzhao. Also, you can't smoke here. You have to go over there. Okay, thank you. Japan was a country that was extremely conservative with its rules. It wasn't bad, but it would indeed make people feel pressured. Many places in Japan were non-smoking areas. There would always be 1 or 2 places on each street that were specially used to attract people. The other places were completely non-smoking. Chinzhao went to the non-smoking area to smoke. Just then, there was a commotion in front. A large number of tourists were running in his direction. Something seemed to have happened in front of them, causing great panic. Chinzhao and the 4 bodyguards immediately ran to the shop where Feilai and the others were shopping. Chen, what's wrong? I don't know. Something seems to have happened. I saw a large number of people running this way. Chinzhao didn't know what exactly happened. However, he didn't want the commotion to affect Feilai and the 2 kids. Immediately, everyone heard gunshots outside. The police cars started to block the road and evacuate all the tourists. Mr. Chen, Miss Feilai, you guys go first. I'll go take a look outside. Chio Kaori couldn't care about her job anymore. Saying that, she ran to the street and ran toward the source of the commotion. Feilai, you guys go play somewhere else. I'll stay and watch. Okay, be careful, Feilai said helplessly. Portia didn't understand. There was clearly an emergency ahead. First, Chio Kaori ran in that direction, but Chinzhao stayed to watch. She really didn't understand what they were thinking. Was it really that fun to watch? The road ahead had already been blocked by the police. All the tourists had been evacuated too. However, the police didn't enter the scene. Their mission seemed to be to block all the entrances and exits. Kaori, you're here so fast. Are you nearby too? When Chio Kaori rushed to the scene, she saw one of her companions there. Kishimoto, what's going on? Chio Kaori asked. I don't know. I received a notice from the Metropolitan Police Department that there's a cosplayer who randomly slashes people with a knife. Just a cosplayer? Chio Kaori didn't think that a crazy cosplayer could make the police block the scene. 10 people were killed here last night, Miki Kishimoto said. They were all slashed with knives. Even the police cars were cut open. There were a few bullets cut open at the scene too. Could it be the Devil Blade? Chio Kaori's expression darkened. The Devil Blade was a general term for a type of monster. It was actually a monster that controlled people. The main body was the blade. The Devil Blade was a very difficult monster to deal with. They weren't afraid of death and only knew how to kill. Their swordsmanship was also extremely powerful. As long as the body of the blade wasn't destroyed, it would never be defeated. Just at this moment, a piercingly cold breeze blew past. Chio Kaori and Miki Kishimoto's expressions changed. A samurai with a katana was walking toward them. The katana in the samurai's hand emitted a thick demonic aura. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1708. The samurai had a strange smile on his face. Step by step, he walked toward the two of them. Virum. At this time, the roar of a motorcycle came from behind the samurai. The samurai turned around and saw an extremely cool heavy-duty motorcycle rushing towards him. The rider of the heavy motorcycle was wearing a black windbreaker and a red and black helmet. On the left side of the heavy motorcycle was a machine gun. Da-da-da. Scattering brilliance! The samurai's katana slashed in the air. The machine gun bullets created sparks on the samurai's katana. The heavy motorcycle suddenly crashed into the samurai. The samurai's figure flashed, avoiding the heavy motorcycle. Chaos Sakura! The samurai attacked again. In an instant, the samurai turned into a stream of light, his figure extremely fast. Oh no! Sakurako, be careful! Suddenly, a short figure appeared in front of Sakurako without warning, holding two small katanas, crossed to block the samurai's attack. Little Devil Star. Seeing the newcomer, Kishimoto Mitsuki and Chio Kaori were very happy. Among them, Little Devil Star was the best at using katanas. How could there be a sword devil in the city? Little Devil Star regretfully looked at the samurai in front of him. Although he blocked the samurai's attack, he could still feel the terror of the sword devil in front of him. The samurai tilted his head, muttering, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly, the smile on the samurai's face became more and more brilliant, but also more and more terrifying. Little Devil Star crossed the two katanas in front of his chest. As a sword user, he could feel the terror of the sword devil more than anyone else. This sword devil exuded the smell of blood. Did this sword devil kill 100 people? Or 1,000? At this time, the samurai slightly tilted his head. Another person came from behind. Murata. Seeing Murata also came, everyone couldn't help but be happy. Murata was their leader, and also the strongest. Murata Ishino clenched his fist and looked at the samurai with an unfriendly expression. Is this the guy who ruined my weekend? Kazufuro! The samurai suddenly turned around and slashed at Murata Ishino. Steel! Murata Ishino's body suddenly turned into metal. Hiss! The katana tore Murata Ishino's clothes, but it could only leave a shallow white line on his chest. Is that all you've got? Haruka Murata patted his chest. The warrior gently stroked the edge of his sword and assumed the stance of a bow. In an instant, the warrior's aura changed. Murata, be careful! Little Devil Star shouted. At this moment, the samurai was no longer a puppet, but an unsheathed sharp blade. A black aura was released from the warrior's body. Fusion Chop! The samurai transformed into a black stream of light, and his figure could no longer be seen with the naked eye. The speed of the blade was peerlessly fast, bringing with it boundless terror as it attacked Murata Ishino. Ikyo Murata only felt a suffocating pressure. Bang! A huge fist attacked from the side of Murata Ishino, directly sending Murata Ishino flying. The giant fist took the place of Murata Ishino and received the terrible blow of the samurai. An arm flew up. The owner of this arm was a ghost. It was Chiyo Kaori's spirit-branded Shikigami, Chigui. Chiyo Kaori felt the same. When the white ghost's arm was cut off, she also felt like her arm was cut off. Damn it! Seeing Chiyo Kaori taking the blow for him, Murata Ishino immediately felt uncontrollable anger and flew towards the samurai. The samurai's sword was facing downwards. Holding the hilt with both hands, he suddenly stabbed it into the ground. In an instant, a ripple spread out in all directions. The movement of the 5 people at the scene instantly slowed down. The samurai also turned into a white ghost. Everyone also instantly knew the identity of this demon blade. White Face Onigami! Among the many demon blades, it was the most terrifying demon blade. Many demon blades in the world were created by humans. Because of various reasons, they turned into demon blades. But White Face Onigami was a demon blade created by 100 demons. Moreover, it was a demon blade created by the blood of the Bird Feather Sky Emperor. Of course, White Face Onigami also had another identity, a general under Tamamo no Mae. While everyone was in a daze, White Face Onigami turned into a beam of white light. The first to suffer was Murata Ishino. His body was directly cut open by White Face Onigami. Startled, Little Devil barely managed to raise his 2 odachi to block the attack. But in an instant, the 2 odachi were shattered. Little Devil's left arm flew up. White Face Onigami did not stop. Instead, he turned to the third target, Chiyo Kaori. Suddenly, a wave of noble spirit descended from the sky. The barrier created by White Face Onigami was instantly disintegrated. The noble spirit forcibly stopped White Face Onigami's attack. Zhang Tianyi descended from the sky and slapped White Face Onigami's chest with one hand. Scram! White Face Onigami was sent flying dozens of meters, crashing into the glass of the building behind him. White Face Onigami was just about to get up, when a hand suddenly pressed down on his shoulder. Lend me your sword. Without thinking, White Face Onigami slashed behind him with the blade. But the hand grabbed White Face Onigami's hands that were holding the hilt first. Qin Zhao crushed the hands and tore off the demon's blade. After the sword was in his hand, Qin Zhao's figure suddenly changed. Qin Zhao had heard that demon swords could affect people's minds and make them be controlled by them. But Qin Zhao did not feel that way. However, his appearance had changed to that of a warrior. Even his appearance had changed. He had become a white-faced ghost with 2 horns on his head and blood-red eyes. Demonic chi rippled on Qin Zhao's body, but only on the surface. There was no other change. Just then, Zhang Tianyi walked into the building and looked at Qin Zhao. Monster, surrender now. Qin Zhao felt a toothache. His figure flashed, and he fled as fast as he could. Zhang Tianyi was aghast. This demon's speed was too fast. Even he couldn't catch it. If the monster had slashed at him, how could he have blocked it? No, that demon's sword can't be this strong. Zhang Tianyi frowned and looked down. There was a withered corpse on the ground. The corpse's hands were twisted. Thinking carefully, Zhang Tianyi suddenly understood. The demon's sword was no longer the one he'd slapped away. Qin Zhao was probably the only person who could take the demon's sword in such a short time and not be controlled by it. Zhang Tianyi took out his phone and called Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao, was that you? It was me. Qin Zhao did not deny it. Say, if a demon's sword suddenly appeared when you were returning the Yasakani no Magatama and stole it, would that be reasonable? Haha. Reasonable, reasonable. You're so thoughtful. Actually, Qin Zhao had thought of this on the spur of the moment. The demon's sword was useless to him, but it was not completely useless. At least pretending to be someone controlled by the demon's sword was very deceptive. 9 Heaven's Divine Emperor. Chapter 1709. The demon blade had its own will. However, to Qin Zhao, it was impossible for this bit of willpower to replace him. Qin Zhao was the kind of person who wouldn't be moved by external things. Even back then, when he wasn't so powerful, Qin Zhao would ask him to do a striptease when he was tempted by the root of corruption. Moreover, Qin Zhao had successfully discovered the function of the undead key and absorbed the black dragon's soul fragment, making his soul and will even stronger. Qin Zhao felt that if the demon did a striptease, it might be more effective than just bewitching him. But to be honest, the demon blade completely occupied and robbed his body. It couldn't even enter Qin Zhao's brain. "Qin, you're back. Did you see what's going on?" Fei Lai and the others saw Qin Zhao walk over. "The police have sealed off that area," Qin Zhao said, smiling. "I can't get in." Fei Lai didn't think that Qin Zhao was telling the truth. Osorisa, Jalanash, Nami, and Alice understood Qin Zhao the best. Something big must have happened in the area sealed off by the police. Just then, Fei Lai's phone rang. It was Chio Kaori. Her voice was a bit weak. "Ms. Fei Lai, I can't be your tour guide for the next 2 days." "It's okay. I think something must have happened," Fei Lai said considerately. "If there's anything you need help with, just tell me. If I can help you, I won't reject you," Fei Lai said understandingly. "Just tell me." "No, it's okay. I can do it myself." "Thank you, Ms. Fei Lai." After hanging up, Fei Lai looked at Qin Zhao with some resentment. "You made us lose a tour guide." "What do you mean?" "It has nothing to do with me. If you weren't stopped by the police, we might not have lost this tour guide. You can hire another one." Chio Kaori, Ishino Murata, Little Devil, Sakurako, and Kishimoto Mitsuki all stared at Zhang Tianyi in shock. That terrifying white-faced demon had beaten the 5 of them up so badly that they couldn't fight back at all. In that instant, the demon could have killed all 5 of them in one move. But Zhang Tianyi, who had suddenly arrived, had sent him flying with one move. The old man was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. This made everyone confused about Zhang Tianyi's identity. At this time, Sakurako's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise as she stared at Zhang Tianyi. "Little girl, don't stare at me like that. I'll be embarrassed," Zhang Tianyi said disrespectfully. "If you admire me very much, contact me in private." Are you the Taoist Master Zhang Tianyi of Mount Longwu Celestial Master Sect in Huaxia?" Sakurako looked at Zhang Tianyi in shock. Keep it down. Don't call me Tao Master. Just call me Heavenly Master," Zhang Tianyi said with a smile. His face was filled with an expression of, "Come and praise me quickly." "Sakura, who is he?" Chio Kaori asked in confusion. "The most powerful psychic in the world, the leader of the Huaxia spirit world," Sakurako said. Zhang Tianyi looked at Sakurako. He had a high status and seniority. However, he wasn't very famous in the spirit world. At the very least, he was much less famous than the 23rd generation Blood Mary. Even in Huaxia, only the older people knew about him. But Sakurako seemed to be very familiar with him. "Little girl, your family is?" Zhang Tianyi looked up and down at Sakurako. Sakurako was still wearing the motorcycle helmet, and her body was also tightly wrapped. "Master, my name is Sakurako Suzuki from Nagoya's Hell Ghost Vision Suzuki family." "Hell Ghost Vision, is there anyone in your family who knows me alive?" To be honest, it's not that Zhang Tianyi looked down on the Suzuki family. Their family's method was to borrow the power of ghosts and gods, and they could gain great power in a very short time. This method was called Hell Ghost Vision, and it trapped the power of ghosts and gods in the body. This method seemed powerful, but no one who used this power could live past the age of 35. Therefore, the Suzuki family was also famous for their short life. It was precisely because of this that Zhang Tianyi said these words. Decades ago, Zhang Tianyi did know 1 or 2 people from the Suzuki family, but they were also young. Those 2 young people were the rising stars of the Suzuki family, and they were proficient in Hell Ghost Vision. But today, Decades later, the souls of those two youngsters might have already perished to the ends of the earth. How can mortals bear the power of ghosts and gods? It's nothing more than using the young body to fight. Master, I saw you at the Huaxia Dao discussion conference 10 years ago, Sakurako said. Oh, I see. It seems that I presided over the opening ceremony of the Huaxia Dao discussion conference. Master, may I ask if you destroyed the white-face ghost vision? No, he escaped, Zhang Tianyi said. What a pity, he actually escaped. Master, may I ask if you came to Japan for the Killing Stone seal? Yes, I was invited by your Japanese government. The Killing Stone seal can no longer be repaired, and the demon fox in the Killing Stone is bound to escape. Zhang Tianyi nodded. It is said that when the 4 monster generals appear, it is the time when Tamamo no Mei escapes. Zhang Tianyi's heart moved, and asked, What are the other 3 monster generals? Tamamo no Mei's 4 generals are the white-face ghost vision, the green-face divine master, the red-face ghost king, and the black-face ghost demon. Sakurako didn't hide anything and told Zhang Tianyi everything she knew. The white-face ghost vision's original body is the demon blade, and it has already appeared. The green-faced divine master is a fallen onmyoji who was seduced by Tamamo no Mei. His current whereabouts are unknown. The red-faced ghost king is an evil spirit summoned to the human world in ancient times. He eats countless people and was sealed in Kobe by the Grand Onmyoji Abe no Saimai. The exact location is unknown. The black-faced ghost demon is said to be a monster born from evil in the human world. Every time it appears, there will be dark clouds, as if it is the end of the world. Zhang Tianyi wondered if he could stop the 4 monsters from appearing. Could he stop Tamamo no Mei from breaking the seal? The possibility was low, but there was no harm in trying. Now, the demon blade white-face ghost vision was in his hands. Perhaps he could get some information and clues about the other 3 monsters from him. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Izuo Murata. His arm had been cut open. Although the bleeding had stopped, he was still weak. I made this pill myself. I don't know how effective it is, but try it. It shouldn't kill you. Hurry and take your arm to the hospital. There might still be hope. I'm leaving. Chapter 1710. The trip to Akihabara was interrupted, but it didn't affect everyone's mood. Gaia was in charge of picking up the people who would arrive today. West, Rouen, Pennsylvania, and Elite, Henry, and the other outer members were on the 6 p.m. flight. Actually, Chen Zhao did regret bringing his family this time. Because the current Tokyo was really full of danger. The situation was much more serious than Chen Zhao had imagined. Chen Zhao had thought that the incident would happen in the Aokigahara forest under Mount Fuji. It was more than 100 kilometers away from Tokyo. It shouldn't affect Tokyo. But it turned out that Chen Zhao had underestimated the impact. It was different from the big incident in China 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the myriad demon king's sealed demonic aura leaked out. The location was more than 1,000 kilometers away from a densely populated area. At that time, there was enough space for spiritualists to rush over. But this time, the incident happened less than 200 kilometers away from Tokyo. Most of the places within this distance were densely populated areas. It was mainly because Japan was too small and had a large population. At night, there was another party to welcome West and the others. Portia realized that many of the people who came today looked like street thugs. That was indeed the case. The outer members had all been forced by Qin Zhao to do odd jobs in the headquarters. Of course, they'd all turned over a new leaf now. After all, the association paid them well. Most of the time, it gave them personal space and time. Even gangsters might not earn as much as they did now. In fact, most gangsters were in a precarious situation. Apart from the big shots, not many could get rich from gangsters. Moreover, the supernatural organization had a strict policy toward the outer members. Whoever dared to walk the same path would have their legs broken. For example, Morad had been a gangster back then. Then, Qin Zhao taught him a good lesson. A few gangsters ran up to Portia, asking for her number. Of course, Portia didn't give them any face. After eating something at the party, she planned to go back to her room to rest. Portia was very curious about Chen Zhao's employees. They seemed to be from all walks of life. But they didn't seem like gangsters. At least, she hadn't heard of any gangsters organizing group building and tours. When she reached her floor, Portia saw a few hotel employees in front of her room. The door to his room was open. Portia was instantly enraged and immediately ran over. Portia saw a monk in a black kasaya standing at the door. "What are you doing? Get out of my room, or I'll complain to your hotel." The expressions of the employees were not normal. At that moment, the monk came out of Portia's room. "Hello, Mississippi, what are you doing?" Portia asked with a dark expression. "There are monsters here. I'm here to exorcise them," the monk replied. "Do you think I'll listen to your nonsense?" Portia felt that her intelligence had been insulted. "What happened?" Gaia came up from behind. "They barged into my room and told me that there's a monster here. That's utter nonsense." Portia felt even more confident when she saw her people arrive. Portia looked at these people and her gaze fell on the monk. This monk must have just used a spell, as there were faint traces of magic on his body. Gaia's eyesight was not very good, but he could still sense the obvious traces. "Portia, check to see if anything is missing." "Oh, right." Portia immediately ran back to her room. Gaia followed. "How is it? Did anything go missing?" "No, but I'm not very happy right now," Portia said. "I'll let your boss handle this. I'm sure he'll take care of it," Gaia said. "Okay." Portia could only agree. After Gaia left the room, she called Chen Zhao. "Hey, Chen, there seems to be a monster in the hotel." Gaia explained the situation. "Okay, got it." As soon as Monk Mingji went downstairs, he heard a voice from behind. "You're a monk from Dayu Temple?" Monk Mingji turned around and looked at Dongye Tianqi. "You are? The room you exorcised is my friend's. Can you tell me about it?" Chen Zhao had called Dongye Tianqi over. In their team, other than Portia, Dongye Tianqi was the only Japanese who could speak Japanese. Moreover, he was more familiar with the Japanese spiritual world. It would be best if he could help. "You too? I'm a bladesmith. I used to work at the forge," Dongye Tianqi said. "If that's the case, it'll be easy." Monk Mingji relaxed. "I was an employee of the hotel. Through the surveillance, I noticed something unusual. This hotel has some connections with me, so they invited me over to exorcise it. Did you find that thing?" "No, but you better be careful. I've seen the surveillance. That thing should be a lustful bride." Lustful brides were spider monsters. Their upper body was human, and their lower body was spider. Lustful brides loved to attack beautiful women, eat their internal organs, and store their skin. Lustful brides? Dongye Tianqi frowned. He'd heard of such monsters before. They were very troublesome. "Sir, do you need me to help you exorcise it?" "There's no need for that. My friends are all spiritualists." What a joke. Most of the people in the association were here, including Chen Zhao. If they were disturbed by a small lustful bride, wouldn't they be shameless? "Okay. Be careful. I'm leaving." Monk Mingji shook his head, his face dejected. More and more trouble has been happening in Tokyo recently. To be honest, the more supernatural incidents there were, the more supernatural activities there were. But the people of the supernatural world didn't like this. Because all the spiritualists in Japan knew what was going on. The seal on the stone of slaughter was about to be unlocked. The 1,000-year-old monster would appear in the world. That was why the demons and monsters were appearing more frequently. After sending Monk Mingji off, Dongye Tianqi hurriedly reported the situation to Chen Zhao. It seemed troublesome. There was a monster hiding in the hotel. But it wasn't complicated. The entire hotel staff aside, the only people who needed protection were Fei Lai, little Jerlin, little Larissa, and Portia. Fei Lai, Jerlin, and Larissa were under Chen Zhao's watch. No matter what came, it was useless. Portia was followed by a few female members. Nothing big would happen. After Qin Zhao put down the phone, his small world expanded. He focused on finding the lustful bride. But to Qin Zhao's confusion, he couldn't sense the lustful bride at all. Chapter 1711. Qin Zhao's small world was more than 500 meters in diameter, and shaped like a sphere. It could cover the entire hotel in a small world with extra space. But Qin Zhao couldn't find a single small monster. Had the Luo bride already escaped the hotel? To be honest, Qin Zhao admired the Luo bride. After all, to any monster, this hotel was a dangerous place. This hotel was like a dragon's lair or a tiger's den. That was why Qin Zhao suspected that the Luo bride had discovered the problem in the hotel. Of course, there was another possibility. The Luo bride was already so awesome. This Luo bride was already so awesome. If that was really the case, Qin Zhao had nothing to say. Gaia, go drink with Portia. Get her drunk. Don't let her leave your sight. Gaia, go find Portia and get her drunk. Don't let her out of your sight. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Gaia walked in with 2 cases of beer. Gaia, why are you here? I should be the one asking you. Why did you run back to your room before the party ended? I feel like most of the people who came today are hooligans, Portia said bluntly. After all, she'd grown up in New Orleans. She could feel the gangster aura from some people. It couldn't be covered up. Did they harass you? I'll teach them a lesson tomorrow, Gaia said. Since you can't stand them, let's drink. The 2 girls sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. They weren't friends, but they could talk in front of beer. Gaia, are you married? No, but I have a kid, Gaia said. Can you tell me about the boss? You mean Qin? Don't tell me you've fallen for him? Stop joking. Portia didn't have any feelings for Qin Zhao. She was just curious. Qin Zhao was rich, but he seemed to know people from all walks of life. Qin is a doctor. Doctor? How is that possible? How can he be a doctor? He had an operation in China and got into an accident. Then he came to America and LA. Before I met him, I even beat him up. You probably don't know, but he's a medical professor at UCLA. Haha. You beat him up before? This was probably the most delightful thing Portia had heard in a while. Later, he wanted to take revenge on me, so he found a combat coach. And then? Then he found me. You can never imagine how wonderful his expression was when he saw the combat coach. Haha. I'm dying of laughter. Portia laughed so hard that tears flowed down her cheeks. Then we became friends, Gaia said. He didn't look for you for revenge? After that, I couldn't beat him anymore, Gaia said frankly. How could that be? I think he's much smaller than you. The gap between me and him isn't something that can be made up for by size, Gaia said. Are you part of a gang? Portia asked cautiously. Gang? Why would you think that? Whether it's me or him, we both hate gangs very much. I can tell you very responsibly that we are not a gang. In fact, we are an operation department under the government, and he is the director of this department. What department is it? Isn't he rich? Why would he work for the government? But the President of the United States is also rich. Right now, the president who ruled the country through Twitter is in power. He is the most famous rich man in the world. Okay, but what kind of business does the boss do? I'm his personal assistant, but I don't know his business scope at all. He sells alcohol, Gaia said casually. But he is also involved in some movie industries. He has a movie industry? Not really, but he has friends in Hollywood. Recently, a movie he invested in is going to be released. By the way, I also play a role in it. I'm the antagonist, Gaia said. Portia was still a little curious at first. After hearing that Gaia had a role, she completely lost interest. It wasn't that she looked down on Gaia. She just didn't think that a movie Gaia was involved in would be produced by a Hollywood film company. It was most likely an independent movie from a third or fourth tier film company. If it was a first tier or second tier Hollywood company, even the antagonist would rarely use an ordinary person. After all, the antagonist was also an important character. Even if they didn't use a celebrity, they would at least use an actor who had played a few roles and had a certain level of acting skills. Unless it was a super small movie. A small movie that couldn't be squeezed out of the budget. Although Portia hadn't been in the movie industry before, as a professional who was determined to become a big star, Portia still knew some of the rules of Hollywood. It seemed that the movie her boss was talking about was the kind that could only be released in small theaters. In America, there were mainstream movie theaters, independent movie theaters, and small movie theaters. The difference between mainstream and independent movie theaters wasn't too obvious. Generally, independent movie theaters mainly supported independent movies, which were artistic films. However, artistic films would occasionally be released in big theaters, mainly during award season. As for the small theaters, most of them were shoddy or pirated films. At this time, Portia was a little drunk. The floor was full of empty cans and bottles. Gaia was still full of energy. Can beer be drunk to intoxicate people? What a joke. Gaia wouldn't even sway if he had 10 times the amount of beer. By the way, Gaia, when will your movie be released? I'll definitely support it when I have time, Portia said. In her heart, Gaia's movie was probably a pirated film. October 1st, that's. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted Gaia's words. Burp. I'll go open the door. No need, I'll go. You're drunk. Gaia shook her head. Strange, why did she feel a little dizzy? Gaia walked to the door and found a waitress standing there. What do you want? Gaia asked. The waitress tilted her head and looked at Gaia, mumbling. You didn't faint? Suddenly, a spider leg extended from the back of the waiter, its sharp tip stabbing towards Gaia. Although Gaia was a little dizzy, she still reacted and quickly dodged the attack. However, her body's reaction was still half a beat slower, and the sharp foot still stabbed into Gaia's shoulder. Shocked and angry, Gaia raised her leg and kicked out. Bang! With a loud noise, the waitress was sent flying into the opposite wall. Portia waddled over and asked, What happened? Chapter 17:12. Portia saw a figure in a waiter's uniform run away quickly. Then, she saw Gaia covered in blood. Gaia's body was pressed against the wall. Gaia. What's wrong? Portia staggered 2 steps forward, but fell to the ground again. Gritting her teeth, Gaia took out her phone. Chen, something happened, I know. Qin Zhao could already feel it through the small world. Raz, Faxi, go to Portia's room, Qin Zhao said. Gaia's injured. She seems to have been poisoned. Ruan Faxi was an alchemist. He had some antidotes. More Raz was a healer. He could handle Gaia's injuries. Qin Zhao paused. Jalanash, you go too, he said. Ruan Faxi and More Raz didn't have much combat power, so it would be troublesome if the monster returned. More Morid Klaus, Qin Zhao said. You guys go after the monster now. He had already locked onto Bride Luo's location. No wonder he couldn't sense her earlier. It was because she was hiding in a waiter's skin. She looked like a normal person. Plus, the skin blocked Qin Zhao's senses. That was why he was fooled. But now, Qin Zhao knew the reason. There were no other problems. Everyone split up, while Qin Zhao stayed at the party. Chen, aren't you going to do it? It's too irresponsible of you to leave everything to others, Thailai criticized in a joking tone. She knew that Qin Zhao didn't do anything to protect her and the 2 kids. Of course, it was also because Bride Luo wasn't strong. At least the people from the association were strong enough. But Thailai was wrong about one thing. Qin Zhao didn't do nothing. In fact, the dark lava was seeping downwards. Some places that normal people couldn't see were already permeated by it. If there were any changes in the situation, dark magma would attack or protect its subordinates. At the same time, Qin Zhao knocked out the people in the surveillance room and turned off all the surveillance in the hotel. The monster is hiding in the cleaner's tool room now. Qin Zhao controlled the phone remotely. She's hiding in a waiter's skin. West walked over. President, do you need me to help? No, it's just a monster, Qin Zhao said calmly. You guys just arrived today. Have fun. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky and landed on the rooftop. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and couldn't help but reveal vigilant expressions. Chen Zhao looked over. Why was Zhang Tianyi here? Hello, Mr. Zhang. Why are you here? Zhang Tianyi took a deep breath. There seems to be a little monster hiding in the hotel. Do you know about it? Yeah, I just found out, Chen Zhao said. I even suffered a bit. My people are capturing that little monster now. Qin Zhao didn't expect Zhang Tianyi to be so perceptive. Mr. Zhang, how did you know? You can tell just by taking a breath? Demonic aura. I can smell demonic aura, even if it's very faint. Zhang Tianyi said matter-of-factly. That's right. You're not a Taoist, and you've never come into contact with monsters abroad. It's understandable that you're not familiar with Taoist techniques. Most people in the spiritual world in our country aren't bad at this. Zhang Tianyi paused. Then he said, Oh, I'm looking for you because of that demonic blade. You need it? Not me. This demonic blade is called White Mask. It's one of the 4 monster generals under Tamamo no Mei's command. Zhang Tianyi briefly explained the purpose of his trip. I just want to see if I can find some information about the other 3 monster generals from White Mask. Chen Zhao shook his head. I can't help it. White Mask's demonic aura can't enter my body at all, much less control me. But because of this, I can't sense its consciousness. Okay, looks like my idea won't work. Zhang Tianyi shook his head helplessly. He wasn't surprised by Qin Zhao's answer. With Qin Zhao's cultivation, if a mere demonic blade could invade his consciousness, that would be the biggest problem. I heard that if you can completely control the blade, your power will increase greatly. Did you increase it? No, it's just scrap metal to me. But if I pick up the blade, I'll become a warrior. Increase Qin Zhao's current power? Stop joking. Qin Zhao didn't feel anything at all. Plus, he still had many abilities that he hadn't used yet. If it was compared to the black trident that was magically modified by Old Turtle, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it would weaken Qin Zhao's power. By then, Bride Luo had already met up with the people who had surrounded her. Klaus shot at Bride Luo directly. The skin of the bride was immediately riddled with holes. Bride Luo also crawled out of her skin completely. She was about to counterattack, but Klaus easily dodged her attack. Mo and Morid also took action. Klaus, there's an attendant on the same floor as you. He's a regular person. Don't be too loud, in case he sees you. Try to be quiet. Chen Zhao instructed through his phone. Zhang Tianyi's small world wasn't as big as Chen Zhao's, but it was still 100 meters wide. He could also sense the 2 sides in the battle. Your subordinates are all talents. Their battle awareness is so strong. I really don't know how you trained them. That Klaus guy doesn't have any magical power. How did he do it? He actually trained his body to this level. Do you have some secret technique? Ha! Just a little trick. Qin Zhao chuckled. Zhang Tianyi didn't plan on getting to the bottom of it, but he was still quite interested in this battle. It's a pity that Norma isn't here, West said. Otherwise, the battle would have ended silently. Indeed, Norma had work to do, so she would only come tomorrow. Of course, Klaus, Moore, and Morid were already enough to deal with Bride Luo. Bride Luo was completely suppressed by the 3 of them. Qin Zhao saw that it was about time. Dark magma suddenly spewed out from the pipe beside him and bound Bride Luo. Huh! What's this? Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao in surprise. It had to be said that if this liquid and solid substance could be wielded with ease, it would be extremely effective in battle. Morid, and Klaus avoided the attendant and dragged bride Luo to the rooftop for Chen Zhao to deal with. Chapter 1713. In the morning, Portia shot up from the bed. She still hadn't recovered from her hangover. However, she vaguely remembered that something had happened last night. Gaia seemed to have been stabbed. Portia hurriedly got up. She didn't even wash up or change out of her pajamas. She ran to Gaia's room and banged on the door. The door opened. Gaia's tall figure stood before Portia. Gaia, were you hurt last night? What? Portia, have you been drinking too much? Portia looked at Gaia in confusion. Gaia indeed didn't seem to be hurt. Right now, her mind was also a mess. She wasn't sure if the things in her mind were real. Was it really just her imagination? Portia, shouldn't you go change? Portia just remembered that she was still in her pajamas. Recently, Tokyo was really in chaos. Evil was everywhere. Of course, large numbers of spiritualists gathered from all over. Not just Japan, but all the spiritualists from all over the world had come. Coupled with the suppression of the government, there were no incidents that were too sensational. But last night, Kobe City Hospital suddenly collapsed. A 10-story building, thousands of patients, and medical staff were all buried in the rubble. This news shook all of Japan, even the whole world. Some people said that they saw a huge ghost destroy the hospital. Others said that the old site of the hospital had once been a huge execution ground. Anyway, rumors were everywhere. Even the rumor that Japan was going to sink was very popular. However, such rumors would appear every once in a while. To Qin Zhao and the members of the association, it was time to eat and play. It was as if it had nothing to do with them. Portia had been shopping for the past 3 days. Her legs seemed to be cramping. Fei Lai also planned to stay in the hotel for a day to rest. Gaia couldn't move around much today, so he didn't go out either. The members of the association also went out to play one after another. Genkira followed Higashino Tianchi to the forge. Qin Zhao went out to drink with a few association members. Shibuya was a place that all men in the world dreamed of going to. Because the alcohol here was really good. Yes, that was it. Qin Zhao, Klaus, and Henry were drinking in an izakaya with Japanese characteristics. When they came out, Henry and Klaus were a little drunk. At night, Shibuya was brighter and brighter, and there was a rancid smell everywhere. President, I think I saw a friend. I'll go greet him and go home by myself tonight, Henry said shyly. Go, Klaus. Are you coming? Qin Zhao asked, unconcerned. Qin Zhao knew where Henry wanted to go. Along the way, Henry's eyes had been wandering around the signs in the alleys. Although he couldn't understand the Japanese words on the sign, the neon color that was commonly used all over the world, as well as the logo on it, were easy to recognize. Qin Zhao was his superior, but it was not his place to meddle in other people's private affairs. I won't be going. I recently got a girlfriend. Klaus was quite serious in this aspect. Ordinary people? Yes, he's an elementary school teacher. Klaus nodded. And then you should get along well. A cool breeze blew past the street, and then a person in front of him suddenly fell to the ground, clutching his neck. Then, a riot broke out in the streets. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. Klaus was a bit tipsy, but he sobered up instantly. He turned to look at Qin Zhao. President, are they monsters? Yes, 2 big rats, Qin Zhao said. In the wind, there were 2 rats that looked very big. The 2 rats moved with the wind. One used its sharp claws to rip open the victim's neck. The other used its mouth to take away the victim's money. This made Qin Zhao curious. The 2 rats were clearly monsters. It wasn't hard to understand why monsters killed people. But not only did they kill people, but they also stole money. Why did they steal money? The 2 rats reminded Qin Zhao of a famous Japanese monster, Itachi Kamikaze. It was a monster that moved with the wind. It looked like a rat, but it was invisible. But in Japanese legends, Itachi Kamikaze had 3 brothers. One tripped people, one tore open people's wounds, and one applied plaster to the victim. However, there were only 2 in the wind just now. They clearly didn't match the legends. Let's go over there and take a look. Yes. Klaus put on his special glasses. The glasses allowed him to see things he couldn't normally see. At first, Jalag had made them. Then, after Ruan Faxpen came, he'd remade them. Now, the glasses were more portable and had more powerful functions. Other than seeing souls, they could also see other things. But Klaus still couldn't keep up. Qin Zhao suddenly grabbed Klaus and lifted him into the air. This was the first time Klaus flew into the sky without modern technology. Of course, Klaus quickly adjusted his state of mind. The 2 mice went into a remote factory. There were a few dead people in the factory, as well as a man wearing a black robe and a tall hat. The man's attire looked like the clothes of an ancient Onmyoji, hunting clothes. A few green will-o'-the-wisps floated around him. Kamikaze Tsung, you're back. How's today's harvest? The 2 monsters called Kamikaze and Tsung landed before the man. Then Tsung threw all the money he'd stolen before the man. Nice job. I'm rich now. I don't have to stay in a place like this anymore. Tsang Yuanhuan, we've already helped you kill 99 people. In order to steal the blood-stained money, we've fulfilled your request. Return our brother's medicine to us. The Onmyoji named Tsang Yuanhuan looked at Kamikaze and Tsung with an evil smile. Do you think this is enough? Tsang Yuanhuan looked down at Kamikaze and Tsung. Do you want to go back on your word? Both Kamikaze and Tsung flashed their sharp claws. Don't, please don't. If you kill me, you'll never see your brother's medicine again. Tsang Yuanhuan tried his best to look panicked, but he was actually smiling. He was clearly teasing Kamikaze and Tsung. Kamikaze and Tsung had been hesitating. They'd had enough of Tsang Yuanhuang's teasing. But they couldn't be at ease without seeing their brother's medicine. We can't be controlled by him anymore. Kill him, and we'll find the medicine. Kamikaze was the most murderous. He finally decided to kill Tsang Yuanhuang. After some hesitation, Tsung finally agreed to Kamikaze's idea. What a disobedient little mouse. Tsang Yuanhuang's lips curled up slightly in disdain. Obviously, he didn't think much of the 2 rats. Chapter 17-14. Qin Zhao and Klaus hid in the dark to watch the show. Qin Zhao took out his phone and typed Tsang Yuanhuang in the search bar. The person who jumped out was a Dao Venerate of the central government during the Henwu Heavenly Emperor Huang dynasty. He was a 3rd-rank imperial astronomer of the Japanese imperial court. Later on, he was imprisoned by the Heavenly Emperor due to rumors that a disaster was about to befall the Pingan capital. Rumor has it that he committed suicide in prison. In other words, if this guy was Tsang Yuanhuang from the Heian era, then he had lived for at least 1,100 years. Tsang Yi and Yuanhuang were facing off against Lian and Tsung. A battle could break out at any time. Suddenly, Tsang Yuanhuang shouted, "Scoundrel, come out!" Just as Klaus was about to stand up, Qin Zhao pushed him back down. He shook his head at Klaus. At this moment, 2 people jumped out from the opposite roof. Chiyo Kaori and Sakurako Kurosaki appeared. Tsang Yuanhuang whistled. If I knew that 2 beautiful ladies would come tonight, I would definitely clean this place up. The ghost fire around Tsang Yuanhuang whistled and landed on the surrounding corpses. The corpses suddenly burst into green flames. You are the green-faced divine master? Sakurako was also wrapped up tightly this time. He wore a ghost mask and carried 4 short swords on his back. Tsang Zhenhuang frowned and said unhappily, Is it about Tamamo no Mei again? How annoying. I have nothing to do with him anymore. You don't have to look for me. Besides, I haven't used the title Green-Faced Divine Master for 1,000 years. Tamamo no Mei's lackey, do you think you can get away with this kind of sweet talk? Chiyo Kaori said disdainfully. Tsang Zhenhuang narrowed his eyes at Chiyo Kaori and said in a sinister tone, Brat, do you know how powerful Onmyoji can become in 1,000 years? Traitor of the Yin Yang Dao, no matter how strong you are, You will never be able to escape from the restraints of yin yang. Idiots who are obsessed with Taoism. Suddenly, Lian and Tsang attacked Sang Yuanhuang at the same time. The two demons transformed into a gust of wind, and a tearing sound could be heard in the air. Little rat! Tsang Yuanhuang spread his sleeves, which suddenly expanded. It was like the legendary heaven and earth in the sleeve, constantly sucking in the wind. In the blink of an eye, the gale had calmed down, and Tsang and Sickle both fell out from the calm gale. All of their abilities were closely related to the wind. They could create strong winds, and they could also control strong winds. However, if they lost the gale, all of their abilities would become meaningless. At this moment, Chiyo also attacked. Two giant ghosts appeared behind Chiyo, Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost. Green Ghost wielded a mace, while Crimson Ghost wielded a demon-headed blade in each hand. Qingui and Qigui attacked Sang Yuanhuang at the same time. Sang Yuanhuang's sleeves were aimed at Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost. The gale that he had sucked in earlier was released directly at the two ghosts. Crash! The two gigantic ghosts were blown away. Heaven and earth, light of Tao! Sakurako muttered an incantation. Gods of the four directions, grant me a body, come! So it's a little friend from the Yugeisia family. Tsang Yuanhuang looked at Sakurako and didn't interrupt her spell casting. Instead, he stood on the side and commented, Gods of the four directions? He's just a partial god. Even if you invite his true body here, he might not be able to defeat me. In Japanese mythology, the gods of the four directions were actually similar to China's city god, earth god, or mountain god. They were gods that were born in a certain region. Although they were called gods, they were actually no different from demons. They had divinity, but they weren't as powerful as gods. Even some demons could bully them. Don't forget, this is Tokyo. Sakurako's eyes suddenly emitted a red light, and her aura surged. Japan had moved its capital several times, but Tokyo only became the capital in recent times. Before Tokyo became the capital, China hired a feng shui master to search for dragons and break veins. They set up the Four Symbols Formation to guard the fate of the country. The Four Symbols Formation was the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Therefore, the gods of the four directions in Tokyo weren't ordinary earth gods or mountain gods, but four divine beasts. Each of the four divine beasts had boundless divine abilities, and they were countless times stronger than the gods of the four directions in other places. Sakurako was surrounded by divine fire. She spread her arms, and endless divine fire spread toward Sang Yuanhuang. Red Lotus! Within the divine flame, one beautiful red lotus after another blossomed. Sang Yuanhuang cursed inwardly and tapped his foot on the ground. Yellow springs compared to Nara. A black spring appeared on the ground. The black spring spewed out black water pillars, directly extinguishing the divine fire. The beautiful red lotuses also withered. Suddenly, a charming laughter came from the factory. The laughter was filled with ethereal beauty. Even if one only heard the voice and couldn't see the person, they would still feel an indescribable charm. Red flowers bloomed from the black spring, gradually covering the entire factory. Even the walls and ceiling of the factory were covered by the red flowers. A naked woman with only a few red muslin wrapped around her was lazily lying on her side in the sea of red flowers. Whether it was Kama, Sora, Kwagi Sakurako, or Chiyo, their eyes were filled with confusion. The flower of the other shore blooms, the yellow springs nirvana. In the Buddhist scriptures, nirvana referred to the endless hell, never to be reincarnated. The spider lily was also the flower of hell in Buddhism. There was no shore on the other side, and the yellow springs bloomed. Even Klaus, who was hiding in the dark, was affected. Slap! Qin Zhao slapped Klaus's face. Ah! Klaus woke up instantly. Any more rats? Sang Yuanhuang looked at where Qin Zhao and Klaus were hiding. Qin Zhao took out the demon knife white-faced ghost and instantly turned into a sword-wielding warrior. Then, Qin Zhao walked out in a dignified manner. White-faced ghost! Sang Yuanhuang's body shook and his pupils constricted. As his emotions fluctuated, the Yellow Springs Nirvana disintegrated. Sakurako and Chio Kaori's expressions changed drastically. Sangi Yuanhuang wasn't someone they could deal with anymore. Now, there was another white-faced ghost. They'd just suffered from the white-faced ghost yesterday. They didn't expect him to appear again. The situation this time was clearly more dangerous than yesterday. Yesterday, Zhang Tianyi had saved them. But this time, they weren't so lucky. However, Sangi Yuanhuang's expression was even worse than theirs. In his opinion, white-faced Gui Chei's appearance here was undoubtedly to deal with him. Also, since the white-faced ghost was here, would the red-faced ghost king and the black-faced Rakshasa be far away? As one of the 4 generals under Tamamo no Mei, Sangi Yuanhuang didn't dare to say that he would definitely win against any of them. Moreover, if the other 2 came too, he really wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 17-15. Hee hee. A sudden voice sounded. I didn't think I'd meet 2 old friends. What a delightful charge. A cloud of black smoke charged into the scene and turned into a man wearing a black crown. Black-faced Rakshasa. Rakshasa, do you know that white-faced ghost is here too? Another voice sounded. The voice came from above the factory. Everyone couldn't help but look up. Suddenly, the roof of the factory was lifted and a huge red ghost king poked its head in. Chio Kaori swallowed. Behind her, Green Demon and Red Demon were also terrified. Compared to humans, Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost were already very large. But compared to the Red Ghost King, it was still many times weaker. Without a doubt, this Red Ghost King was one of the 4 generals under Tamamo no Mei, the Red-Faced Ghost King. The current situation was that the 4 great demon generals had gathered and had all appeared. Haha! I didn't think the 4 of us would reunite under these circumstances. I believe our master will break the seal soon and return to the human world. Sangi Zhenhuang laughed out loud. Earlier, he'd wanted to escape Tamamo no Mei's control. But the situation was beyond his control. He didn't think he could fight 3 monsters of the same level at the same time. So, he changed his tone decisively. Both the black-faced Ghost King and the red-faced Ghost King knew what Sangi Zhenhuang was thinking. Plus, as colleagues, they knew how shameless Sangi Zhenhuang was. Sangi Zhenhuang represented the worst side of humans. Despicable, sinister, and without any standpoint. When he'd been imprisoned, it was their master, Tamamo no Mei, who'd given him a chance to be reborn. He'd also become one of his master's servants. But after his master was sealed, he'd completely broken away from the 4 generals. Plus, he'd never thought about saving his master. Every few decades he'd always heard about his misdeeds. Now that the 4 generals had gathered, Sangi Zhenhuang immediately changed his attitude. He'd become his master's loyal servant again. Only Qin Zhao, the fake general, stood there without saying a word. Chen Zhao was curious about what would happen if he killed all 3 of them. Could he stop Tamamo no Mei from reappearing? Suddenly, a cold glint shot out of Chen Zhao's eyes. The 3 great demon generals were alarmed. What's this guy doing? Each of the 4 of them had a strange temperament. However, the most reclusive one would have to be white-faced Gui Chei. He never spoke, only killed. While they were still in shock, Chen Zhao had already made his move. An extremely fast saber light cut through the air. Sangi Yuanhuang looked at his arm and chest sliding down. This? Sangi Yuanhuang stared at his body in disbelief. But in the next instant, Sangi Yuanhuang's body suddenly transformed into a human-shaped piece of paper that had been cut open. Sangi Yuanhuang walked out unscathed. Damn it, this guy is crazy, he wants to kill me! Sangi Yuanhuang roared furiously. Did you all see that? This guy wants to kill me! White-faced ghost, stop messing around! The black-faced Rakshasa shouted. Just then, Qin Zhao charged at the black-faced demon. Damn it! The black-faced Rakshasa retreated hastily. But no matter how fast he was, he could not be faster than Qin Zhao. Although Qin Zhao was holding the demon knife, he didn't know any of White-Faced Ghost's moves. It was just a show. But that didn't mean he didn't know how to fight. Even if he had never fought with a katana. But who didn't know how to cut people with a sword? Qin Zhao slashed across the black-faced Rakshasa's body. The black-faced Rakshasa hurriedly turned into a cloud of black smoke and floated away. Of course, even that didn't mean he was completely unharmed. Qin Zhao didn't like to fight against opponents who could turn into mist, but it didn't mean he couldn't do anything. In fact, the demon knife was effective against enemies who could turn into mist. Even without using immortal power, Qin Zhao could hurt the black-faced Rakshasa with the demon knife. Sangwa Ma, Chiokawari, and Sakurako were all dumbfounded. What was going on? Why did White-Face Ghost turn against him? The black-faced Rakshasa gathered at another location. However, there was a ghastly scar on his chest. Damn it, White-Face Ghost, if you don't explain yourself, I won't go easy on you. The black-faced Rakshasa roared. Qin Zhao didn't say anything. If he did, he would be exposed. Just then, a giant hand descended from the sky, grabbing at Qin Zhao. The red-faced Ghost King attacked. He was more direct than the others. Hiss, Qin Zhao didn't plan to hold back. Anyway, Qin Zhao had made up his mind. He would leave all 4 of them. No, 3 of them. Roar, the red-faced Ghost King's arm was cut off. Blood splattered everywhere like rain. The Ghost King's blood was like gasoline, burning the moment it landed on the ground. Qin Zhao's body started burning too. But Qin Zhao didn't move. Even if his body was on fire. Kill him! Kill him! He betrayed us! He betrayed Master! Qin Zhao didn't plan to stop. He charged up along the red-faced Ghost King's arm. He raised the knife and the red-faced Ghost King suddenly stopped roaring. His movement stopped too, as if he was frozen in a movie. The scene became silent. Everyone looked at the red-faced Ghost King and Qin Zhao, who was on his shoulder, in shock. Slowly, the red-faced Ghost King's neck and head separated. Qin Zhao might not be able to deal with Sun Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King. But the red-faced Ghost King was the best opponent for Qin Zhao. The red-faced Ghost King's huge body fell down, collapsing a wall of the factory. Sun Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Aoi Kama, Chiokawari, and Sakurako were all in disbelief. The 4 demon generals had killed each other. And the powerful red-faced Ghost King had been instantly killed by the white-faced ghost. Tsang Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King felt chills down their spines. What was going on? The 4 generals should be equal in strength. How could the white-faced Ghost King kill the red-faced Ghost King so easily? No, something's wrong. Tsang Yi's face was pale. He was different from the other 3 generals. He wasn't a pure demon. He was a half-human half-demon transformed by Tamamo no Me. Therefore, he still retained the habits of humans, and also retained some of the bad traits of humans. His way of thinking was more like a human's. He vaguely realized that there was something wrong with the white-faced Ghost King. But as for what exactly was wrong, he couldn't tell. The one in front of him was indeed the white-faced Ghost King. There was no fake. But where did this strange feeling come from? Tsang Yi looked at Qin Zhao. The moment he met Qin Zhao's gaze, he finally understood. The gaze wasn't cold as a knife. It was mockery, disdain, and murderous intent. Chapter 17-16. The white-faced Oni wouldn't have such a look. Because the white-faced Oni was the last of the 4 generals. It wasn't that he was the weakest, but that he was the last to appear. It was a demon blade made by Tamamo no Me herself with the help of the other 3 generals. Tsing Yi was also one of the participants. He understood the white-faced Oni. At least, he thought so. The white-faced Oni was the most loyal to Tamamo no Me. He was an emotionless weapon. Any body controlled by the white-faced Oni would also be emotionless. However, Sani Yuan Huang saw the emotions in White Mask Gui Chei's eyes when he came into contact with it. At this moment, Tsang Yi panicked. He thought of a possibility. A person who could pick up the demon blade wasn't enslaved by the white-faced Oni. This meant that this person was more powerful than the white-faced Oni. He was stronger than any of them. Wait, the white-faced Oni. I'm on your side. I'll kill the black-faced Rakshasa with you. That way, we can completely break free from Tamamo no Mei's control. What do you think? Sung Yuan Wang had once again displayed his most shameless side. Chen Zhao looked at Sang Yi. He didn't waste any words. Sang Yi's face darkened when he saw the blade coming. He used the paper man substitutes again. The paper men substitutes were very useful. They could avoid a fatal attack. But they couldn't be used limitlessly. Not to mention the complicated production process and high price. Using the paper men substitutes required a large amount of mana and also the pain of each fatal attack. Chen Zhao was prepared for this. The moment Sang Yi used the paper men substitutes, Chen Zhao locked onto Sang Yi's real body. Chen Zhao swept up a gust of wind. The blade cut through the air like a dragon's roar. But just as Chen Zhao was about to hit Sang Yi, suddenly, a figure appeared before Chen Zhao. Duang, the figure smashed heavily toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao blocked it with his sword. Then, he flicked it upward. His arm was sent flying. Sang Yi's Shikigami appeared in front of him. It was an 8-armed King Kong made entirely out of metal. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Chen Zhao's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Is this a joke? What is this? Spirit-branded retainer or Gundam? Apart from the arm that was chopped off by Chen Zhao, the other 7 arms of the King Kong were all holding Gatling guns, and its body was covered in bullets. Moreover, the machine guns in its hands were obviously specially made. Each gun had a very large caliber. Blackface Rakshasa, this guy clearly wants to kill us all. If you still hesitate, we'll all die here today. When that happens, you won't even have the chance to serve Tamamo no Mei, Singyi Zhenwang said. The black-faced Rakshasa also felt that the situation was getting out of control. He was not as cunning as Sangyi Yuan Wang. Even now, he still did not understand why fiendish blade white-faced ghost would betray him. However, it was just as Sangyi Yuan Wang had said. If he continued to watch the show, Sangyi Yuan Wang would be killed. Then it would be his turn. Although he hated Sangyi Yuan Wang, he hated her so much that he didn't even try to hide it. But he also knew that he was stronger than others. The black-faced Rakshasa's body floated up, his arms spread wide. At this time, the moon and the stars were completely covered. Most of Tokyo was shrouded in dark clouds. At the center of the dark clouds was the black-faced Rakshasa. He sucked in big mouthfuls of dark clouds. The dark clouds were actually the negative emotions of the people in the area. Right now, the black-faced Rakshasa was absorbing the negative emotions of millions of people. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. This black-faced Rakshasa should be half a step into the Shangqing state. Among the 4 generals of Tamamo no Mei, this guy should be the strongest. With every negative emotion he absorbed, the black-faced Rakshasa's power increased. Chiokeru and Sakurako felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on their hearts. This battle was no longer something they could participate in. Chen Zhao looked at the black-faced Rakshasa, then at Sangyi Yuan Wang. Killed Sangyi Yuan Wang first. One had to admit that Sangyi Yuan Wang's Shikigami was an eye-opener for Chen Zhao. The 8-armed King Kong, which was a mixture of science and magic, was indeed refreshing. However, that was all. The blade in Chen Zhao's hand flashed. Ta-ta-ta, 7 Gatling guns fired wildly at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao neither dodged nor evaded. He swung his blade from bottom to top. When the blade slashed across the ground, sparks flew and a ghastly scar was left on the ground. However, the blade wasn't obstructed. Instead, it carried an even fiercer and colder killing intent. Hiss! The 8-armed King Kong's arm, gun, and body were instantly cut off. Oh no! Sangyi Yuan Wang was shocked. He didn't expect his Shikigami to be so useless before Chen Zhao. He thought that even if Chen Zhao faced an enemy much stronger than him, the 8 Gatling guns would still be a huge problem. 8 Gatling guns could also bring great trouble to the enemy, and it was not impossible for them to kill enemies that were stronger than themselves. Moreover, the 8-armed King Kong's body was made of titanium alloy. It was almost indestructible. Alas, dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. Before Qin Zhao, the 8-armed King Kong couldn't unleash its combat power. Qin Zhao didn't stop. He continued slashing at Sang Yuanwang. Substitute. Seeing that Qin Zhao wasn't far away, Sang Yuanwang could only activate the Paper Man substitute again. But this time, Qin Zhao exploded with even greater speed. He was more than 10 times faster than before. Before Tsang Yuanhuang could activate the Paper Man substitute, Qin Zhao had already slashed his neck. The demon blade in Qin Zhao's hand brushed through the air at high speed. It was already red like a soldering iron. Tsang Yuanhuang stopped moving. Her face was filled with shock and disbelief. You! Who exactly are? Qin Zhao grabbed Tsang Yuanhuang's head and lifted it up gently. Tsang Yuanhuang didn't die right away. After all, he was a half-human, half-demon Onmyoji that had lived for 1,000 years. Most of his abilities were in staying alive. Guess. Qin Zhao didn't plan to tell Tsang Yuanhuang his identity. He planned to keep pretending to be the white-faced ghost. Qin Zhao looked at the last general, the Black Rakshasa. To be honest, the white-faced ghost probably couldn't defeat the Black Rakshasa. The Black Rakshasa had also absorbed enough negative emotions by now. His eyes were as deep as a black hole. He floated in the air and looked down at Qin Zhao. I didn't think I could absorb so many negative emotions here. It feels so good. Qin Zhao stared at the Rakshasa. His lips curled into a smile. Enjoy your last pleasure while there's still time. Chapter 1717. What? The Rakshasa was stunned. Demon Blade White-Faced Ghost wouldn't say something like that. But just as he was distracted, like an arrow, Qin Zhao shot toward the black-faced Rakshasa. The Rakshasa was fully prepared. However, there was one thing that he had forgotten. Because Qin Zhao wasn't slashing him with a knife. Instead, Qin Zhao gave him a bear hug and pushed him to the ground. Qin Zhao's power wasn't something he could fight against. Even if he'd absorbed half the city's negative emotions. Qin Zhao pressed the Rakshasa to the ground. He raised the demon blade and stabbed it into the Rakshasa's chest. The Rakshasa wanted to turn into black mist, but every time he did, Qin Zhao would use his celestial power to disperse the Dharma power in his body. The Rakshasa started to panic. He punched Qin Zhao crazily. He wanted to push Qin Zhao away. But his fists were no different from a drizzle to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's current appearance and smile were like mockery to the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa's aura grew weaker and weaker. I won't die. As long as humans exist. One day, I will, none of my business. Qin Zhao sneered. He didn't plan on meddling in other people's business forever. The Rakshasa had become weaker, but he still hadn't given up hope. He continued to struggle. But every time he punched Qin Zhao punched him back. He would always be at a disadvantage. Qin Zhao nailed the Rakshasa to the ground with the demon blade. Every time Qin Zhao punched him, the Rakshasa's demonic aura would disperse a bit. Qin Zhao didn't kill him with one punch because he was afraid he'd turn into mist and escape. Qin Zhao had dealt with enemies who could turn into mist before. He couldn't be too impatient against such enemies. He needed to disperse their power bit by bit. Keep weakening them until they didn't even have the power to turn into mist. The ground within dozens of meters was full of cracks from Qin Zhao's punches. He couldn't do it with just the power of the demon blade. He couldn't even defeat the Rakshasa. Boom, boom, boom. Chiyokawari and Sakurako looked at the continuous explosions 100 meters away. But it was completely covered in smoke and dust. They couldn't see what was going on inside. The two of them thought about it and decided to leave. If he didn't run now, he would have to wait for the two demon generals to decide the victor. By then, it would be too late for them to escape. They wouldn't continue to think that they could deal with any one of them. Whether it was the white-faced ghost or the black-faced Rakshasa, they were beyond their imagination. If they were to get close to the center of the battle, just the aftermath of the battle would be enough to make them wish they were dead. So, they ran away with their tails between their legs. The rumbling continued for 20 minutes. Only then did Qin Zhao walk out of the dust. Although he had not used his full strength in the battle with the black-faced Rakshasa, he had already won. But Qin Zhao's face was still covered in dirt. "Klaus, you can come out." Klaus stepped out of the shadows. "President, where's that demon?" "I killed him," Qin Zhao said. To be honest, Japan was an active region in the supernatural world. The strength of the supernatural demons here was also beyond his expectations. For example, the black-faced Rakshasa's strength was almost on par with the snow fiend Kunkka of the Great Snow Mountains of North America. The black-faced Rakshasa was slightly weaker than Kunkka, but the difference wasn't huge. The black-faced Rakshasa needed densely populated areas, while Kunkka needed to be in areas covered in ice and snow. Their strength was greatly limited. However, once their conditions were met, they would become extremely powerful. The black-faced Rakshasa was a big demon in Japan, but not the strongest. Kunkka was already one of the strongest in North America. One could imagine how great the difference in power between the spiritual world in North America and the spiritual world in Japan was. Now, Qin Zhao had a chance to fight with the strongest demon in Japan. Qin Zhao couldn't help but guess that the Japanese's supernatural world was already so powerful. In that case, just how powerful would the Huaxia region's supernatural world be? And how powerful would the top Chinese supernatural world be? He had to find a chance to ask Zhang Tianyi. "President, can you fly me back?" "No, the city is too eye-catching." This place was far from the city, but it was still densely populated. Their battle just now had already attracted attention. There were already police cars moving in their direction. If he really flew back to the hotel with Klaus, they would probably be monitored by the government. Just then, police sirens could be heard in the distance. The two spent an hour returning to the hotel. As soon as they entered, Qin Zhao and Klaus paused at the same time. "President." "Yeah, you noticed too, right? Is it those two rats?" Qin Zhao could only notice them because of the perception of the small world. But Klaus was different. He relied on his awareness and the few traces he had. This was his super battle awareness that he'd trained in countless battles. "Let's go upstairs first. Don't fight here. They can't hide from my senses." "Sung, are you sure the person with the demon knife is that man?" "Yes, my nose is very sensitive. It's at least 100 times better than yours. He won't kill us, right? We've killed many people." "I don't know, but he's our only chance." The two rats followed Qin Zhao and Klaus into the hotel. Using his scent, they found Qin Zhao's floor. "It's the room in front." The two rats snuck to the door. The door wasn't closed. Without thinking, they crawled into the room. But the moment they entered, the door was closed. Tsang and Sickle were dumbfounded. There were many people in the room, and almost all of them were foreigners. Everyone looked at Tsang and Sickle with evil intentions. "Rats? Rats?" Jerlin pointed at Tsang and Sickle in surprise. Two big rats, Dad, I want big rats." Tsing and Sickle immediately wanted to escape. But the next moment, a large net fell over their heads. Tsang and Sickle were dragged to the center of the crowd. Tsang and Sickle hugged each other in fear, trembling. Fei Lai glanced at Qin Zhao and whispered, "You can't keep rats in the house." Fei Lai liked small animals, but she couldn't like all of them. For example, she couldn't feel anything for the two rats. Gaia lifted the net and studied them closely. "Chun, do they have some disease?" In the western view, rats were unclean. Jerlin jumped up, trying to grab Tsang and Sickle who were in the air. Squeak, squeak, Tsang and Sickle looked fierce. Qin Zhao reached out and grabbed the two rats in the net. "You better keep your claws. If you bite my daughter, I'll skin you." "Oh, I'm Chinese. Have you heard that we Chinese can eat any species until they're endangered?" Chapter 17-18. Sung retracted his claws and fangs decisively. Tell me, why are you following us? Do you want to attack us? Qin Zhao stared at the two monsters with a cold expression. It wasn't that they were weak. Itachi was a rather famous monster in Japanese mythology. He wasn't that weak either. However, they were short of one. Moreover, they were facing a large group of people. Their aura was extremely weak. They had no other choice but to pretend to be pitiful. We want to borrow your demon knife. Sung looked at Qin Zhao, trembling. Borrow? Are you that elegant? Are you planning to steal or rob? Qin Zhao had seen them kill and rob on the streets. They didn't show mercy at all. Of course, Qin Zhao couldn't be bothered to argue with them. This was Japan anyway. It had nothing to do with him. Unless it was like now, plotting against him. Otherwise, he wouldn't care at all. Japan's spirit world was different from North America's. The Japanese mainly dealt with monsters by suppressing or purifying them. To them, it didn't matter how many people a monster killed. The more ferocious a demon was, the more merit one would gain if they were purified. North America was mostly dominated by evil spirits. There would be some disturbances from other monsters or magical beasts. Furthermore, as long as it was an evil spirit or a magical beast that had taken human life, it would basically be hard for it to escape death. The two regions had different standards. Of course, it was also because they had different views. So, Qin Zhao didn't care how many people these two monsters killed. In Japan, there were no monsters that didn't kill people. The only difference was how many, or how few they killed. Otherwise, they would be the kind that couldn't even beat normal people. What do you want the demon knife for? Are you going to start a massacre? It wasn't that Qin Zhao looked down on them. With their strength, let alone the fact that they would be controlled by the demon blade if they took it. Even if they could maintain their sense of self, they wouldn't be able to cause much trouble. In less than half a day, they would be suppressed. Especially since this was Tokyo, the place with the most spiritualists and supernatural organizations. No, we want to use the demon knife to find our brother Yao. What does finding your brother have to do with stealing the demon knife? Every bewitching blade has a special ability, hunt, Sung said. As long as it is stained with the blood of the prey, even if the prey escapes to the ends of the earth, the demon blade will still be able to find it. Do you have your brother's blood? Yes. Qin Zhao rubbed his chin. What do I get out of helping you find your brother? Our brother has medicine. He has a medicine pouch. The medicine in that medicine pouch can quickly heal external injuries. As long as it's not the head or a vital point, it can instantly heal any cuts or external injuries. Sickle said. Qin Zhao sank into deep thought. The medicine didn't seem to be effective on him. However, he thought about his family and the people in the association. This medicine was very useful to them. After all, everyone had an emergency. Are you sure your brother is still alive? Of course, we three brothers are of the same origin. If the medicine dies, we won't be able to live either. The two brothers were so anxious to save the medicine. It was not just because of their brotherhood. At the same time, the three brothers' lives were tied together. If one of them died, the other two would die as well. The Weasel Sickle race was like this. They had a litter of three brothers. They came from the same origin and entrusted their lives to each other. Thus, the Weasel Sickle race had always been protective of their kin. Sure, I'll help you. Qin Zhao agreed readily after a short moment of consideration. Just then, Portia pushed the door open and saw more than 20 people in the room. Qin Zhao also had 2 rats in his hands. Ah, rats, these guys are so boring. Gaia walked up and put her arm around Portia's shoulder. I caught 2 rats and they're having so much fun. Let's go to another room. Portia hurriedly followed Gaia out of the room. Are all Japanese rats this big? Portia asked with lingering fear. Such a big rat was definitely a big shock to her. She thought about the size of the 2 rats. She felt that she would have nightmares tonight. No, I can't feel it at all. Qin Zhao shook his head. He smeared Weasel Sickle's blood on it, but he couldn't feel the existence of the medicine or his location. But it couldn't be helped. After all, Qin Zhao wasn't controlled by the demon blade. Of course, he couldn't enjoy the power it gave him. To Qin Zhao, the demon blade had no other use other than being sharper than regular weapons. "Let me try," West said at that moment. "West, the demon blade can control people." "Are you sure?" Qin Zhao looked at West hesitantly. He didn't want one of them to take such a risk to save a monster. "President, I'm confident," West said. "President, I can cast a soul light on West to protect his consciousness from being eroded," Raz said. "I have a soul pendant here," Ruan Faxben said. "It can also prevent consciousness from being eroded." He was rather interested in this deal. He was mainly interested in the medicine pouch. If he got it, he could use it for research. "Okay. Cast a spell on West first, and hang the soul pendant on him too," Qin Zhao said. "West, if I find anything wrong with you, don't blame me for knocking you out." "Yes, I know." West nodded slightly. After Raz cast a spell on West, Ruan Faxben took out the soul pendant and put it on. Qin Zhao shielded Fei Lai, Jerlin, and Larissa behind him. Qin Zhao protected Fei Lai, Jerlin, and Larissa behind him. He didn't want anything to happen to his family. The moment West took the demon blade, his body turned into a warrior. West's body instantly turned into a warrior, releasing a red demonic aura. Everyone stared at West warily. After all, they weren't sure if West could keep his mind. "West, how are you now?" West opened his eyes silently and turned to Qin Zhao. "I'm fine. The demon blade didn't affect my mind." Qin Zhao realized that West's reaction was much smaller than he'd imagined. He felt that even without the soul pendant and Raz's spell, West could probably resist the demon blade's control. Qin Zhao didn't expect West to be so mentally strong. "Can you feel where the medicine is?" West wiped the blood on the demon blade and sniffed it. Then he nodded. "Yes." "Great, where is he?" "Where is he now?" Sung and Sickle asked impatiently. "You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.